is the headline on the Nation today. Revealed secrets of the MP Somalia trip. Tough questions for 11 politicians who secretly left Nairobi on Saturday for Mogadishu, where they were hosted and dined by President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo in what could herald a fresh diplomatic tiff between Kenya and its neighbor. Wajir East MP Rashid Kasim, Mandera East Omar Salah Malim, Lajera's Mohammed Hire and Kulo Malim all alighted from a plane at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport yesterday. What was of concern is to the country was how the MPs travelled to a foreign country without the necessary clearance. And of course, this is according to Secretary Mureithi Kangi. So of course, questions are rife. How did you go? Why did you go? Whom did you go to meet? And what was being discussed? So it's being dubbed a secret weekend visit to Somalia by 11 Kenyan MPs at a time the two countries are locked in a diplomatic tiff. And this has raised eyebrows in security circles. Upon their return yesterday, the legislators were held briefly for questioning at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. And of course, many had said that they were lucky that they were actually let to go home. There were indications that they could face a parliamentary inquiry for leaving the country without official clearance. So, I mean, obviously, if it is clear in terms of what the rules are, they should have sought this clearance prior to leaving. And of course, the discussion would have been had. What are you going for? Under whose authority? Why are you going? And it seems to me that although they were feigning some kind of innocence, they knew that they should have sought this clearance before they traveled. They chartered a flight on Saturday and they had dinner with President Mohamed Farmajo. Their agenda was not disclosed, although they traveled on diplomatic passports and were treated as state guests. So this is likely to come out, and it's also obviously been said that they could face espionage charges because you're going and you're having a conversation with one of the proponents of a diplomatic, clearly a row. At this time.
If it isn't clear what the rules are when it comes to traveling out of the country, I have an idea that if you work for the government, and an MP actually does, they may not think so, but if you are representing the people of Kenya, you are a public servant.
Yes, you are.
Now, what is certain is that there are certain basic requirements that must be followed. You must inform certain people. You must be given the okay to travel. You actually must.
Yep.
Now, perhaps those who are detractors and those who seem to be seeing nefarious reasons for the travel should start with what is a formality, lay it out, and then indicate what it is, the laws that they broke, because they travel in broad daylight. It's not as though...
They weren't hiding it.
No, they were not. It's not as though one secretly went through Wajir, then another one went through Mandera, and then another one followed a camel route, then another one went by air. They all went. It's a group of people who traveled by air. Clear as day. When you travel, you book a flight. When you book a flight, people get to know where your destination is.
And there's a record.
There are flights from Kenya to Mogadishu.
In this case, it was a chartered plane, but still, the record is still there.
Even if they're charter planes, it means planes go to Mogadishu and they come back to Kenya, and it's not an issue. Yeah. They fly there. So perhaps a little more needs to be told to us about why it is this is creating so much fuss.
Of course. It's come out that the mission was not officially communicated to protocol officials at the National Assembly or the Foreign Ministry, which clearly is the way things are supposed to be. Neither Kenya's ambassador to Mogadishu, Lucas Tumbo, or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Nairobi knew of the visit. So that, of course, is what is causing problems as we're looking at it now.
Like with most things in this country, when you hear such a fuss, pause.
Pause.
Give it time. You will get to know with time what really underpins this discussion, what is making it such a huge discussion.
Right.
It isn't just that people traveled to Mogadishu and then came back. No.
Well, coronavirus, it was global, but now we're looking at it at an even more encompassing scale. And it's interesting now because as of Sunday, the government has roped in all counties in its efforts to prepare for any coronavirus infection. An interministerial committee in charge of getting the country ready on Sunday also announced that 10 million shillings will be released to Kenyan students stranded in Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak. CT, last week, you did something of a prophetic nature again, and you told us that a committee was going to be formed. You did. You told us that they would form a committee on this coronavirus story, and voila, yesterday. Sesa, Sifini, it was done.
Well, yes, that committee has been formed. Remember, there was a committee that the president also disbanded. But what is of interest, if you can send 10 million to these students, I have to ask the question, what would it cost to transport them back into the country?
The conversation is being had, interestingly. CS Kagwe yesterday said, look, we're looking into the possibility of the same. And of course, now, after the outcry and then now seeing the seriousness of this globally, they've said, you know what, we need to start having the conversation of how we can bring them back. And in the meantime, while they're discussing this and weighing the possibility against the possible risks, we're going to send them this 10 million shillings for their upkeep until we can make this decision. So, of course, we're going to discuss it in greater detail and look globally later. But counties, just interestingly enough, as to what's happening here, counties roped in preparedness drive, 615 health workers trained on how to tackle the disease. It's interesting how when you want to do something, it can be done, eh? Preparation of 120 ward facility at Mbagathi Hospital as one of the isolation centers. Preparation of 11-bed capacity isolation ward at Kenyatta National Hospital. Of course, we knew this before. 10 million shillings to be sent to stranded Kenyan students in Wuhan. Setting up of 3 virus alert hotlines. And the hotlines, of course, the numbers will be given later. But now this is what we see. Everybody seems to be all hands on deck.
No, they are not. No, they are not. They are not. If you look at any country that has had what we're referring to as an outbreak, what you will find is that the health systems have been overwhelmed. Meaning the number of people who require health care. If you talk about, say, South Korea, they are now saying that hospital beds should be only for those who are critically ill. Critically as in you're on death's door or you're at death's door. If you look at the way they've handled these things in Japan, if you look at the northern Italy, look at Lombardy, they started complaining about the strain on the healthcare system long before.
Right.
Right now it's being estimated that 1,500 people have been estimated may have contacted the coronavirus and it's been detected in the US. That is what is being said now. Why? Because 2 people, they've tested the strain of the coronavirus in 2 people. And using algorithms and trying to map out the likelihood, considering their movements and the way this disease is known to spread, they're saying that it is very, very likely that right now as we speak, today, 1,500 people may have been infected. Now,
in the US.
Yes, but the US health system says there's nothing to panic, they're ready. But remember, within the US, there are over 30 million people who do not have health care facilities, as in they don't have an insurance, they don't have the sort of medical care that guarantees that if you fall sick, all you need to do is report to a hospital, number one. That counts for something like 9% of that particular population. So, if you look at even statistics related to the US, you will find that US claims that they have the best healthcare system on the planet. Yes. Now, when you have people who do not seek healthcare because of the cost element, because at the end of the day, there'll be a bill. At the end of the day, there'll be an invoice. And you're being told that they are prepared. You have to pause and ask, how do you listen to what is being said? And how do you juxtapose it to the truth of what you know about the disease? So when Kenya tells us that they have 615 healthcare workers trained.
Trained when? Because when did this happen? I don't understand. Because as
and
of
why
Friday,
615? Why not 550 or 300 or 150? Why 615? Why 615 specifically?
Well, we got to give a high number so that you can understand that we're serious about this, and we have people across the country.
And I'm telling you, 615 is not a high number.
It needs to be more, right?
The one problem that we've had in this country that required specialized training for the longest time was HIV. The infection of it. And we also had to train people over the years, we take it for granted, on how to understand malaria. You have technical capacities for detecting it, for managing it. We know. So it doesn't look like it's a big thing. But you know why? Almost any healthcare worker in this country knows what to do with malaria. They do. So you can't be overwhelmed because everyone knows about it, because you're trained in it. HIV with time, very many people got to be trained. So you found that entire healthcare systems could manage it. Now you're telling us that you have a disease who one of the characteristics it has is that it seems to spread undetected, and then when it's detected, it causes alarm. And you're telling me you've trained 615 people to take care of a population of 47 million. Okay, try another one.
We're going to take a break and look at the weather in a minute and see what's happening around the country. We're going to come back and continue with this. This is the Situation Room. We are having a look at what's going on in the headlines today, the papers around the country, and of course around the world. We'll continue in a short while. Starting off in Nairobi today, we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions, still chances of showers later on. Right now at 16 degrees, looking at highs of 24 and lows of 15 today. In Nakuru, currently at 13 degrees, cloudy conditions through the day, chances of rain later with highs of 22 and lows of 17. In Mombasa at 25 degrees, cloudy conditions and expected showers later with highs of 32 and lows of 24. In Kisumu at 19 degrees, it's showers that we see right now through the day. This is what it's going to carry with highs of 29 and lows of 21. In Malindi today, currently at 26 degrees, partly cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 32 and lows of 26. Taking a look into East Africa now, in Kampala at 21 degrees, partly cloudy conditions through the day, chances of rain later on with highs of 29 and lows of 14. In Dar es Salaam at 29 degrees, partly cloudy conditions with highs of 30 and lows of 21. And in Lagos today, we see highs right now of 36 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, currently standing at 26 and lows of 24. Take a look at Europe later on. That's what the weather looks like in Kenya right now.
Spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Right. 94.4 Spice
This
FM.
morning, my name is Ndruko. In the studio this morning with C.T. Muga, taking a look at what is happening, of course, as in having been reported by the newspapers today in Kenya and around the world. Still on that coronavirus tip, which of course we'll be looking at in more detail later on in the room. But now just to look at what the state is now moving to do, CT, according to the nation, isolation treatment facilities to be put up in counties to boost the response to a possible outbreak. Of course, we see that there are 615 health workers that have been deployed. Of course, my question is, this training took place when now? Between Friday and last night? When or yesterday afternoon, when this announcements were made, because we saw CS Kagwe then this committee then had a meeting yesterday, the first meeting after the establishment of the committee, and all of these announcements were then made. If we look around the world now, of course, the numbers rising: 84,934 deaths. Cases, 2,917 deaths. And we see more numbers in countries like the US and Italy. Italy coming round to almost 1,000 cases right now, standing at 888, deaths at 21. If we're going to look now more specifically at Kenya, travelers coming into the country from Italy, South Korea and Iran will now also be required to self-quarantine for 14 days, the government has said. Still, again, we're on this issue of self-quarantine. And when we saw that the measures were being taken the other day, it was not self-quarantine that was suggested, but government monitored quarantine then needed to take place, because this self-quarantine business clearly is not working. The head of the task force, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe, said cases have soared in Italy, and working together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in thinking that other people or other possible measures to take in order to keep the country safe. Our response must adjust to the new reality. It would be helpful if the travelers can also be checked before they leave their own countries. Now, obviously, this is something that has to come about as a result of some kind of bilateral talks, one country to the next. It's not something that you can now, talk about here. One thing that was interesting, though, that he did say, CT, was that they were going to then discuss with their counterparts in China, the embassy in China. But remember, a couple of weeks ago, Sarah Sarem basically said, who of course is the is the Kenyan ambassador to China. She basically said her hands were tied in terms of what she could do. So I don't understand what rebirth of a conversation is going to happen now in terms of getting folks out of Wuhan, getting them back into the country, this kind of thing. But according to him, the conversation must adjust to the new reality, or rather their actions must adjust to the new reality.
We need to move, and this one I'm being prescriptive, we need to move from this era where leaders come in and they want to solve problems with words. You say something, it sounds good, it sounds nice, it sounds like it's well thought out, but it isn't any better than people who had preceded Mutahi Kagwe had been saying.
No.
Everything that he's saying here, in one way or the other, if you look at the papers and go back a little into history being last week and the week before that, you will find that similar sentiments have been expressed by Cicely Kariuki or other people. What is of interest that this task force is interministerial.
Yes.
You find more than one ministry has been involved in this.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't give one confidence that they actually know what they're dealing with this, because I would have preferred to have a situation where you saw people who actually had medical facilities, people who actually had medical unions, people who actually had various disciplines within medicine being represented here. Now, they may very well have had subcommittees that deal with these things. Because remember what we're dealing here, there's a social element of this disease, managing and just coping with the impact that it has.
Yeah.
But this is a medical issue.
It is.
So if you have politicians chiming in, government chiming in, that is a good step. But involve people who actually understand these things and people who actually have made it their life's duty to practice medicine. Involve more.
Involve them. You want to
more
do that. Absolutely.
Let them know. Let us know the various bodies you've involved, and let us know what they are saying. Let us know what KMA is saying. Let us know the statement on this particular matter. Then one feels a bit safer, because KMA will talk directly to its members. If it's an association like Kenya Pediatrics Association, they'll talk to its members. It's the OBGYN body, they'll talk to their members.
Right.
All these bodies, this is not somewhere where, it's not an exclusive club.
No.
This is an inclusive club where
Everybody is
has
involved.
to be included. Yes.
Yeah.
So you want to involve people, you want to make sure they understand it. So when you tell us that you've involved all these people and the training, they're participating in it and they're offering the expertise, then it provides a window for at least easing the tension. One feels, this thing is being managed. At the level where bureaucrats are issuing statements, no.
But did it need the president?
It did.
It needed, that's what I'm saying. It needed the president to speak up in the manner that he did on Friday, to then see all these that we had happen in 2 days. Saturday, people made statements. Sunday, a meeting was had, and then we saw the announcements that came after that. It needed the president to step in and say, come on, folks, we can't just be sitting around here and all these things are going on and we're not doing something about it.
But even of interest, what, in my opinion, needs to be asked, the individuals who allowed this particular plane to not just forget leaving China, that's a Chinese problem, to land here, and then 239 people disembarked and just sort of like went their merry way. If you look at what's happening in Korea, the blame of the spread of the coronavirus in Korea is focused on one particular church. It's called the Shincheonji Church of Christ. And the leader is actually in court being charged. Now, guess what? Take a guess. Murder. Because they're saying the government told you something, you willfully went against it. And now look at what we've had. Members of that church have had to be quarantined, as in they've been set aside, they have all been tested and put aside. Not now, when a government takes that sort of action, it tells you they're taking this thing seriously. In the same manner, the individuals who are involved in this, whether it's a Kenya Airports Authority, whether it is whatever security, whoever was involved in this process, those fellows should be brought to book. They should be not just called in. The way they're looking for these 239 people, because according to the papers, we've been told that the court has ordered. The court should order the people who are involved in this process, this coming in. Those fellows should be taken in.
Right.
Yes.
Because this is a matter of utmost seriousness.
No, this is a matter of life and death.
Life and death, literally.
Now, whatever reasons they have for having made this step, whether they thought it was for a good cause, whether they thought that sufficient cautionary measures had been put in place, whether it was for some selfish gain, whatever the reason is, this needs to be known, and these people need to face the full wrath of the law. There's no getting away from this one. Here you are trying to solve a problem, and here's someone else exacerbating the situation.
The situation.
Yes.
Trying to figure it out, and here we are taking ourselves 2 steps back.
2. These are a lot of steps.
These are a lot of steps. Well, all right. Like I said, we're going to look at this in greater detail later on today. A new product in the Standard this morning, of course, is inside today's Standard is My Health. And looking at stories having to do with health today, one of those, interestingly enough, high medical costs are turning dreams of parenthood into an eternal debt trap. So they're the moving stories of 3 Kenyans bankrupted by huge hospital bills. And this is a new, fresh weekly pullout on My Health. A lady says, I'm paying 20,000 shillings monthly for 58 years for my dead baby. They were not able to save this child, unfortunately, but she has to pay for the next 58 years, struggling to pay or clear medical bills worth 19 million shillings and 7 million babies born before time. Jabali Damaris McMay's bundle of joy was born premature and thrust into Aga Khan Hospital's intensive care unit 7 months. And 19 million shillings later, the poor boy died. And now his heartbroken mother will pay the hospital 20,000 shillings every month for the next 58 years to clear an outstanding bill for a child she loved and lost before he lived. Signs of impending doom started when she was barely 6 months pregnant. She was bleeding heavily, and by the 9th week, her blood pressure had hit the roof. And basically, she had to give birth to this child, and they kept him in the ICU for some time. She never got the chance to really be mother to him, but still has to stay and pay the bills. And I guess this is something that a lot of Kenyans are having to deal with now, trying to look for health care for a member of your family, and that doesn't happen. They die for some reason or the other, and then you stay with the bills literally for the rest of your life in terms of an eternal reminder.
You know, when you look at these figures, your first question is what exactly, how do they determine these costs, and why must it be that high? But the reality is healthcare is costly.
It is. Anywhere that you want to look at it, it is costly.
Yes, it is costly, the world, and that's why people need the intervention of schemes like NHIF working and health insurance. Because left on your own, it is healthcare in many cases is almost unaffordable.
Unaffordable.
Yes. And if someone is sick for a long time and they have the intensive sort of like healthcare that is required in an ICU, it costs an arm and a leg.
A leg.
Yes, it does.
Well, this, like you said, we're looking at funds like the NHIF now and saying that this thing actually should work so that you can move, people out of this mess that they continually, are in because of this.
But remember one thing also when you're talking about healthcare. One of the preventative measures that healthcare the world over has understood is in forestalling ailments, meaning there can be indications. For instance, if you're talking about the process of childbearing, there are medical advancements that can actually give you a clear indication of the state of the child even before they're born. Now, unfortunately, many of our countries, many of our developing countries do not have these facilities. And even when a child is born, there are ways in which these things can be managed. Once again, if you're a developing countries, you will be disadvantaged in that some of these things are not available. Yet, if a government health facilities, and ours also tend to be attached to teaching colleges, if the facilities in terms of the human resource and what is available is actually utilized properly, some of these problems could really greatly be allayed.
Could be.
Because if you are training the future medical cadre in this country, it means you have a whole pool of people who are knowledgeable. And apart from teaching them, you're the people who are teaching them. Now, and this is why it becomes imperative for the research arm of our educational institutions, higher learning, or institutions of higher learning. That's why the component of research has to be taken seriously, because in this country, it simply isn't. No, it isn't.
No.
if it's taken seriously, then some of these things that we talk about, remember with research, you will come around to understanding what could be done better.
Better, exactly.
Yes.
And then you go towards so many things like preventative care based on this research, which essentially is cheaper than...
In the long run, it is. It is, because
Absolutely.
you'll have knowledge that ordinarily you wouldn't have had if you've never been involved in research. But so long as this combined effort, which requires just A, training people so that they understand, B, ensuring that you utilize resources that are available, and C, equipping the institutions where these people are trained so that they meet the highest possible standards. If this isn't done, then any fight that we have within the healthcare sector that is intended to improve the health of our people will actually remain at the level that most of our things remain, at the level of talk.
Talk.
Yes.
And action quite limited.
A different matter, yes.
All right, we're going to take a break and look at what is going on with the weather, traffic in Nairobi today. And then we'll come back. This is the Situation Room. We're looking at what's going on in the papers today in terms of what's happening in the nation. We'll let you know in a short while how the roads are looking. Keep it here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at the roads and we're back in a short while. It is Monday morning. Let's take a look and see if there's any madness that's happening so far. We know that the showers that came through the whole night are likely to continue for most parts of the day in Nairobi today. Thika Road already a parking lot all the way from Safari Park Hotel, and it's snaking its way slowly towards the city centre. It's going to be messy, folks, because the roads are still slippery. So you want to, approach with caution, or you want to be as careful as possible in this case. All right. Mombasa Road, of course, we have traffic starting as far back as the Way Bridge already this morning. We're going to go back to Thika Road where there has been an accident. No police at the scene, where unfortunately a body is lying next to the Safari Park Hotel. This of course contributes to the fact that it is very, very slow. Committee Road up to Roy Sambo roundabout is fine, there's no problem there, but once you get onto the main Thika Road, this is where we have the problem. All right, looking at other parts of the city, coming out of Westlands, roundabout the 87, not so bad this morning. We'll take a look in a short while. Coming into the city centre, coming out from Langata Road or Ngong Road or other places, not so bad, but it's likely to heat up because, like I said, it is Monday. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter. Give us a call on 0719-012-600. Let us know what you see, and we'll see how we can keep ourselves moving as best as possible this morning.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent, right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. You tuned into the Situation Room this morning. My name is Nduoko, in the studio this morning with Siti Muga, and we are looking at what is going on in the country and, of course, beyond the borders around the world. Taking a look at some of those stories making headlines this morning. Siti.
Yes.
Over the weekend, a few people went to Meru, and there was a rally that was held.
Yes.
And many things were said.
Yes.
As far as the BBI is concerned,
yes,
there's a scramble for Kenya.
That's what the headlines seem to state in the Standard.
Yes.
And of interest, they even said how politicians are marinating position. The word marinating here is important. Essentially, you are preparing it for cooking.
Yes.
Okay. And
to present a masterpiece that would be delicious for all to partake of.
That's the general idea. But then again, you need to be interested in spices and in preservatives and all these things that are supposed to make food. Now, the ingredients that are being talked about here, the positions that are, well, not up for grabs, but which are going to be under debate. There's no question about the president, but there's the introduction of the prime minister, 2 deputies, a deputy president, ministers, parliament, senate, National Assembly, regional governments, 14 and 47. Of interest, last week, this issue of regional governments, meaning it's like an amalgam of several counties together. The ODM party had said that they were putting aside the interest that they had had in forming these governments. Again, the debate around the BBI, if you look at it for the most part, is political. In this sense, it's seeking to provide a certain political stability in the country. Stability. This has nothing to do with how it's going to translate into the economic welfare of the people. But you take the view that if the country is stable politically, then economic activity should continue.
Right.
That's the assumption. Yet, if you look at the country as we speak right now, it is stable. It is fairly stable. But our economy is seriously going to the dogs.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
With every twist and turn that you look at, forget the coronavirus. Coronavirus just came into the picture the other day here. If you look at the picture, our newspapers have been inundated. It's like it's an onslaught. Every time you read the papers, there's an even bigger scandal than the one you read the week before, the month before. And it all involves huge amounts of money that have somehow taken flight. They've gone where they shouldn't have gone in the first place. Now, if this is supposed to provide a certain feel of representation, it may very well do. But the BBI as it's constituted, when you take into consideration that the BBI was preceded by other initiatives that were supposed to solve the same problem. The Kriegler Commission dealt with just these issues. Post-conflict resolutions where you determined what went wrong. The Truth and Justice Reconciliation Commission. That's what it did. The Waki Commission looked into these things. Then there was the Ndungu Commission that actually looked at land issues in this country. My view is that so long as we bring in new initiatives that don't seem to even consider for a single second other initiatives that has taken place. But even as I say this, consider an even bigger initiative took place. It was called the Constitution.
Right.
And with the enactment of the Constitution, many things that had hitherto been an issue were actually resolved. Renowned personalities who are involved in the constitution making, like Professor Yash Palgai, have said repeatedly, and his message has been echoed by others, please, just action the things that are in our constitution. Don't try and bring in new issues. The Constitution is a one particular set that can easily fit all. Put it, make sure that we simply ensure that what is in the Constitution
is enacted.
Yes. Please, just that.
If that would be the case, then we would probably see, it may come as a blow to many people that if that was done, if the tenets of the Constitution were actually enacted, BBI would be obsolete.
It doesn't have to be obsolete. The BBI could simply rename itself as the initiative that seeks to ensure that
the Constitution is enacted.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Very well so. Because, and then you want to look at the other side of things. Unfortunately, even those who are using this BBI then as a tool for personal alignment when it comes to politics, then such things would not stand. But of course, unfortunately, that's what it is. Because their eyes are blinded to the fact that a lot of these things are already in the Constitution, would have been sorted out if the Constitution is actually enacted from top to bottom, from end to end. But it's not being so. And a lot of people then have had the wool pulled over their eyes in this case, because it's very clear that some of these things you wouldn't have to be dealing with them if you went back to the Constitution of 2010 that we've been talking about for the longest time.
Take for instance, if you renamed it, you changed the narrative to saying something like the BBI actually is the enactment of the Constitution, and you say the BBI initiative seeks to breathe life not only into the Constitution, but to ensure that the entire country understands how this new Constitution was created for their benefit. And then you state it. So at the rallies, you're talking Constitution. At the rally, you're talking enactment of the Constitution. If at the end of it, you say, look, the issues that we'll want a referendum on are not addressed by the Constitution. How, if anybody seeks to have a mind that propels them towards opposing you, what on earth are they going to propose? Because you'll be saying the Constitution doesn't have this. And if it doesn't, the only way you can have it is to have a referendum so that we can actually change the Constitution to amend so that we have it.
Exactly.
Yes. But when you bring the BBI as something that is supposed to be completely new, the truth is it's not new. You are not telling us a debate that hasn't been had. The views that are being collected that we've heard about, these views have been expressed before. Not on one occasion, not on two, not on three. Okay? So, essentially, the BBI is joining the queue. This is a conversation the country has had. And because they had it for such a long time, that's why we all agreed to have a new constitution. And lest we forget, the person who began this talk of the constitution actually was the former President Moi. The issue of changing the constitution, a lot of it had to do with him. Now, people had been pushing for it.
Right.
And he had resisted it at first. But if he hadn't given the leeway, if he had followed the path of most of his African compatriots and Kadu Ngumu, as we say in Kenya, just stuck by his guns, what we now have, and even the debate we're having about the BBI, would not have taken place.
Would not have taken place, yes. Exactly. I mean, yeah, in the trenches, as it were, is what we see now. Unfortunately, then I dare say that the ones who then present themselves as really not knowing what's going on is those who want to use these forums then to align themselves politically, because it is very clear that some people are, coming to these rallies, pushing for an opportunity to speak for themselves, then making it very clear that at the end of the day, it's not the interest of the country as a whole that you have, but the interest for yourself as an individual to make sure that you're in the inner caucus, as it were, and to make sure that, once your name, or rather when names come up for mention, that your name should not be missing from the list. Unfortunately, that's what we are seeing now.
No, please bear in mind, the moral yardstick that used on politicians must be understood within its own context. Politicians will play politics. After all, that's the game that they have chosen to be in. And so when a politician makes a statement, it's never that I am going to benefit. Never is.
Of course not.
It's always good for the people. It's always on behalf of the people. We are a Christian nation. So reggae cannot be stopped.
Yes.
Or is it must be stopped?
Must be stopped. We will stop this.
Yes. We are being marginalized because we have a perspective that doesn't. It's always a collective perspective, whereas in reality, it's an individual's quest for propelling an agenda that they have. That is the world of the politicians and the yardstick they use. If you want a uniformity to this particular understanding, then we have to go to the Constitution and look at the morality that the Constitution allows us or says must be had if you're going to be in this particular avenue of work. But beyond that, I personally see nothing wrong with the politicians doing what they're doing. Not really. That's what politicians do.
Well, they definitely are playing politics. Again, that is what they do. And we shouldn't, it's nothing, if they were not, then I think we would then be surprised with the way in which we know things to happen.
What you see, again, remember, 2022 is just a hop, step, and a jump away. And because our presidency, remember, and what it entails has been a winner-take-all, and because our presidency and power has been associated with an accumulation of an unimaginable amount of money, which monies, of course, are accumulated from government coffers, okay? The pursuit of power for most of the people who pursue it in our country has absolutely nothing to do with the voter, unless you want the votes. But as for whether it should benefit the so-called voter or the mwananchi or the citizen, that usually is not the first, second, or third consideration. It comes way after the considerations have been taken. If you look at our leaders, you look at it, many of our leaders want power just for the sake of it.
Just for the sake of it.
Yes. So that they have it and so that it is known that they have it.
But it's sweet, OCT. The power is very sweet. And a lot of them, once they've tasted it, actually don't want to be in a position whereby they don't have it.
It's a poison chalice.
This
because
is,
if you don't understand that this is power that is given to you, and by its
you're
very
allowed
nature,
to have it. Yeah.
Anything that is given to you can be taken away from you.
Right.
It's not really very complicated. Now, our people seem to have forgotten this. If you move from one scandal to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other, and it all seems unabated, what does that tell you about the leadership of this country? And what does it tell you about what they think about the people they claim to represent? Let's pause for a second and let's talk about the coronavirus, all right? Let's pause. God forbid that these people were allowed into the country because someone had a financial arrangement that they're going to benefit from. God forbid.
The conspiracy theorists are already out there, CT.
And I'm saying God forbid.
Right.
The conspiracy theorists may say what they like, but God forbid. Because if indeed it were to be proven that that was the case, then anyone who tells you that this country needs prayers is absolutely spot on, because this one has gone beyond reasoning about, talking about. This one requires now divine intervention.
If that were the case, all kinds of rational thinking has essentially been thrown out the window.
If someone can sell the heritage, the life, the health of the country for money, something is truly
wrong.
We can't get lower than that. It is not possible to get lower. And someone who is in a position and whose position dictates, or her position dictates, that they should look after the welfare of the citizens. No. That one, it's not an abyss. That one, you've gone beyond the depths of an abyss.
You're at the basement of the abyss.
Yes,
in
you
this
are.
Case.
You are.
In
you
this
are.
case.
You are. Yes. You've gone beyond the ICU. I don't know what that is, but that's where you are. And that's where they put us.
We're taking a break right now. We'll be back in a short while.
Spice FM, Malindi. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Morning's done right. This is the Situation Room right here in the studio with me, Ndu Oko, and I am with Siti Muga this morning, and we are looking at what is making news in the headlines today, of course, in Kenya and around the world. Just coming off of, coronavirus and everything else that is going on. It's interesting now, if you look at the back page of the Daily Nation, still keeping things local. The SRC says the TSC could be in a breach of its advice for having 2 payrolls. The commission, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, has stepped into a row between teachers and their employer over the issue of 2 payrolls for teachers that have been in place since July last year. SRC Chief Executive Officer Anne Gital said the continued existence of 2 different payrolls at the TSC amounts to non-compliance with the Commission's advice. The Kenya National Union of Teachers wrote to SRC on November 24th last year after the TSC implemented a pay hike for 318,000 teachers and left out 103,000 others who were members of the union. So, really, 2 payrolls, 1 commission, SRC stepping in and saying really what is going on. I have to ask myself as well, what's going on here? The Commission notes that the matter raised in the letter should amount to non-compliance to SRC advice. Consequently, the Commission would like to urgently establish the status of the matter by continuous compliance checks in line with this particular matter. It's amazing the things that come up once a little bit of digging is done and some questions are asked. 2 payrolls, why? Half the number of teachers being sorted out, another half not being dealt with, and we go back and forth. So the issues that continue to dog the Teacher Service Commission, the Kenya National Union of Teachers. Now we are looking at, questions of then non-compliance now seep in, and the output, of course, when we're looking at education as a whole, then definitely is affected. In this case, the employer left out KNUT members when it reviewed teachers' salaries last year, and this is pegged on this fact that they have 2 payrolls as opposed to 1.
If you pause and simply look at anything that resembles some conflict within the country, whether it is TSC, whether it is at the ministry, whether it is the issue that we had the other day that is now in the backwaters regarding some con arms deal, anything that is of substance that seems to have hit the headlines, it clearly indicates one thing: the division that represents the political landscape of this country, and on which side of the political divide the players who are involved in that conflict fall into. This problem of teachers is not new. No. The issue of the TSC and the union is not new. It's been a back and forth.
Yeah.
So Sion has accused the TSC of supporting the other body, that Kupet. Kupet, on the other hand, have had their say. TSC have had their say. It's a back and forth and back and forth.
Right.
Remember, not long ago, Sion was supposed to have been ousted out of his position and was no longer Secretary General. And as we speak, he is still Secretary General. This is a saga that has nothing to do with teachers. Absolutely nothing. In all this drama, you tell me, where have the teachers benefited?
Well, where do they even speak up to, throwing their hats in this circus in
Where?
terms of an opinion?
Where?
They've never had an opportunity to speak about where they are, except in the case when certain teachers have been paid and others have not been paid. That's where you hear them being mentioned. The employer left out some members when it reviewed its teacher salaries last year. That's the only time you hear about them. After that, it's one head against another.
And
it's the politics that are played back and forth.
Yes.
And the teachers are used as the bait here in this case.
And the TSC have also fallen prey to this. They have had their say in, they've threatened to withhold salaries, they've threatened to register. Now, those strong-arm tactics don't really work very well, especially if you have an entire body of a union supporting a perspective. They'll gang up against you.
Of course.
And the next thing you know, they'll want the head of the TSC to be kicked out. So now the narrative stops being about the teachers, but rather the politics surrounding the employment of teachers. Pause for a second and now throw in the issue of Northeastern Province and the teachers and the number of teachers who've been killed in there. If you throw that into the mix, you still have a situation where the TSC has its hands full and decisions are being made. Now, again, if you look at that issue of TSCs and the teachers in the northern part of the country, you want to pause and ask, are you telling me that it isn't possible for a far more secure position to have been found for the teachers? Did it need to get to a point where the teachers themselves protested and said they are not going to work in there? Did it need to get there? The answer is no.
It didn't need to get there. And of course, we see pronouncements by Ms. Masharia the other day saying, actually, you know what? Until something is done about the security issue, actually, we are not sending any teachers to Northeast and we're not doing it anymore.
I actually support that view 100%.
Because if that's what's going to take to get somebody to sit up and take notice and do something about it, then absolutely.
We have an army barracks in that part of the world. I'm talking about Garissa, all right? We have an army barracks. We had the army barracks even when the students were killed. It's not that we didn't have it, okay? All those numbers of students and the people who were killed at the university, it existed. We had a situation where we have policemen, we have GSU, we have administration police. Somebody has to explain how it is that with all these forces, you cannot look after the lives of the number of teachers who are actually there. Somebody has to explain this. Now, if the politics of the day and the divisions in our politics is costing the lives of people, the TSC has every right to do exactly what they've done. Yes.
I mean, yeah,
they're responsible for the teachers. Because to allow these teachers to go out there, and if something happens, it'll be tantamount to having sent them to their death.
Absolutely, because you're basically saying, yeah, go ahead, and then if something happens to them, and they're basically going in naked, going in blind, you don't know what's going to happen. You're basically saying, go ahead, and something happens
if
to
the
you,
teachers were the only people complaining, then you'd say these teachers are a bit off. The university, as we speak, have departments that are on a go slow. It's not being announced because the problems that the Minister for Education had with the then VC, who is now again the VC, had taken center stage. But people are not doing what they're supposed to do because there were promises made, there were timetables made, there were monies that were supposed to be paid, and they haven't been paid. But just when you thought it was safe to get out of the waters, and you look at the Ministry of Health, forget the coronavirus for a second and consider the number of counties that constantly have their medical staff on strike. And consider also the promises that have been made to pay these people, promises which have not been kept. So, you ask the question, where have the promises been kept?
Where have they been kept? I mean, a couple of days ago, we saw that, the governor of Laikipia basically said, look, we don't have money. 1, 2, we're not going to continue in this thing of we can't pay, you cannot. So what has he done? He's let go a number of staff and said, okay, well, at this point, there's really nothing that I can do. It's either we reduce the salaries across board or we let people go home. Actually,
health should not have been devolved in the first place. Not really, if you ask me. Because there's the argument that if you're going to devolve the money, but if the government has no intentions of actually ensuring the devolution, because devolution cannot take place if you don't fund it.
Well, letting go of the reins, then, of course.
Then
don't talk about devolution. Let's not pretend that we want
devolved.
To. Because letting go of the reins is something that's very clear that the central government does not want to do when it comes to health. So right. That's because a lot of pretense in this.
Don't pretend that it's a devolved function. Call it what it is. It isn't a devolved function, and then let Afia House and the Ministry of Health take the flak for whatever happens. But so long as a very small portion of the money in health is being doled out to the counties, we are never going to end the problems with the health workers. It's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
It's never going to happen. And you know why it's an issue? It's an issue because you are playing again with the lives of the people. And this one is even far worse than the coronavirus.
Well, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that we keep saying, okay, on the face of it, and we pay eye service, not even lip service, in this case, eye service to these issues and say, yes, it's a devolved function because we're trying to make sure that health meets the people on the ground across the country. But then you don't want to let go of the reins. It is impossible. This cart is not going to it's not going to get moving. We're not going to move in any way. And speaking of perennial problems, City Hall has yet again invited fresh bids for a power plant at the Dandora dump. All previous bidders failed to impress county government on project execution. City Hall is set to roll out a fresh procurement process to get an investor to set up a multi-billion shilling power plant at the Dandora dump site. Of course, this is a dump site that's epic as far as we know. This comes after the county government failed to identify a suitable one in a previous bidding, with all the 60 firms that expressed interest failing to meet the requirements. Nairobi County Environment Executive Larry Wambua said that City Hall will soon advertise for another expression of interest because they needed to get something done. It holds over 1.8 million tons of waste against an expected 500,000 tons. The dump site receives over 2,000 metric tons of solid waste daily from all over the county, and the setting up of the plant was to eliminate the need to relocate the dump site. Of course, many years ago, we heard that, we're trying to get this dump site moved, but then the next possible solution was to eliminate the waste at source as opposed to having the entire site moved. But it seems that the expertise is not available in the country, so they're re-announcing the bid for a power plant at the dump site.
Well, let's go through the process and see how that turns out. But remember, every time we talk of the coronavirus, we seem to assume that all other ailments that cause death in this country sort of like ground to a halt, and they've given the coronavirus passage and says, you go ahead and kill our people while we take a break.
While we take a break and not really pay attention to the other things that are actually going on.
Yes.
This is the thing, though. It seems as though the coronavirus then gave everybody an opportunity to take a break from what they should have been doing. Not to say that they were actually working, 9 to 5, as it were, to make sure that things were done. It's unfortunate that every sector you look into, from water to environment to health to agriculture, across board, even now to county work, just basically was not being sorted out. And now suddenly the focus has shifted to corona.
Just in case people want to forget, are we going into the hour?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. Siti. Cholera is still with us. All right? Hepatitis A and B still with us. HIV still with us. Malaria,
still
dengue fever is still with us. Now, pneumonia is still with us. Anemia. In fact, if you look at the chart that was given by WHO or the Kenya and the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, 2018-2019, pneumonia counted for 11%.
Yeah.
I'm talking about cause of death, followed by malaria at 8%, followed by cancer at 8%, HIV and AIDS 5%, anemia 4%, and heart diseases 3%. So, coronavirus, join the queue.
Join the queue.
Yes.
Absolutely. We'll be taking a look at what's been happening in the papers so far. Remember that you can subscribe online to all the publications. Go to the Google app on Play Store, go to the Play Store app, and then you can find all of our publications there for one standard fee and get to know what's happening at the touch of a button. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're coming to the top of the hour. We'll take a look at what's happening in traffic and then come in and look onto matters BBI and governance and government in this country. Talk about who's trolling who in a short while. And we'll make sure that we have that all information for you.
Spice up your life.
Taking a look at what's happening in traffic this morning. 30 Thika Road, of course, we have the problems this morning with traffic all the way from the Safari Park Hotel. That is still the case. We're not able to move as fast as we can. Also coming in on Mombasa Road, very, very slow. Coming right around from the SGR today, traffic is already moving very, very slowly. Langata Road is a bit tight all the way from the KWS. Waiyaki Way is slow paced from Kangemi all the way to ABC Place. There's an accident near Broadway High School, Thika, involving a motorbike. Seems very serious, and that meant that it has slowed down just a little bit. All this news coming in very slowly. Kasarani Mwiki Road has been restored. Maybe grading could be something great, is what we say, and this is after the rains. It has gone back to the way it was before. Very, very terrible. So that affects traffic as well. Ngong to Karen, bumper to bumper, and this is outward bound. Anyone using Thika Road, of course, you want to be very careful this morning. We're going to give you some information more that we see. Remember that the roads are quite slippery this morning. We'll let you know in a short while how it looks. We're right into traffic hour right now. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter. Give us a call on 0719 012 600, and we'll see how we can keep all of us moving this morning. Hey.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start.
This is the only way to start your day. You are tuned into Kenya's biggest conversation here on Spice FM. This is the Situation Room. My name is Nduroko, in the studio this morning with C.T. Muga, and we're looking at, of course, right now, issues BBI.
You know, when thinking of the BBI and what the proponents have actually stated as being their goal, the closest you can come to is if you compare with something like the Marshall Plan. And this one, by the way, I'm aware I'm stretching it, but I want to stretch it so that I can actually make my point. The Marshall Plan was actually intended to build Europe after the Second World War. And this was a plan that was put forward by the then Secretary of State under President Truman, and he was called actually General George G. Marshall. Now, among the things that people often don't consider is that this plan benefited America the most. Remember, America hadn't been at war. They didn't have their industries collapsing, and they didn't need to rebuild as much as Europe did. So a lot of the money that was then given to Europe also helped bolster the American economy and the American industries. But look at the BBI. The BBI was intended to quell political tensions that had ravaged the country and had been growing. 2017 saw a specifically new crescendo to all these issues, and the country seems to be tearing apart because there was talk of secession. There was talk of people moving apart, meaning the country was actually heading towards great... The country was heading... don't worry, technology tends to do that on its own. I wouldn't worry too much about it. And if it worries you, just switch it off. So, given the state that the country was in, you needed a plan that, one, would stabilize the emotions and the feelings of the people, and then provide them with a way forward. Now, we've heard of the initiatives that the government has put in place in healthcare, in manufacturing, in agriculture, and, as in food security. We've heard all these things, and these are good plans. But what has hampered many of these plans is that the Treasury will keep telling you they do not have the money. So let's pause and look at the country, Kenya, look at what needs to be done. We were headed towards a precipice. But unfortunately, the rhetoric that brings about these things has actually not abated in this country. And for the BBI to actually work, beyond just quelling temperatures and making sure they've gone around the country to sort of like build up a groundswell of support for it, the BBI, if it is properly, forget the narrative, if it's properly positioned and if it's given the sort of flesh that it requires to move forward, could bring in, as I mentioned earlier, all the previous initiatives that had been brought which have not been looked at. It will look at the things in the constitution that could actually be put into practice to ensure this country moves forward. It can actually bring about the sort of platform or the springboard from which indeed a new sort of revolution takes place,
right,
where the country actually changes to become what it could be given the right leadership. That's why I'm referring to it and comparing it to the Marshall Plan. The BBI could be our Marshall Plan. It could be our Marshall Plan. But only if those who are spearheading it take it beyond the rhetoric and ensure that all these complaints, because they must hear them, about the other initiative, TGRC, all these commissions, if all these things fall under their umbrella and they say they are the one commission that's going to bring all these things into force and to ensure that the constitution is actually made into law and that it's put into the practice it was intended for, then the BBI will mark not just the beginning, but the greatest success that this particular administration will have had. And if you're talking about a legacy, it'll be guaranteed.
But it seems to me in this case that the BBI is the puppet, and those who are pulling the strings are not interested in taking it onto its conclusive end. And it's very clear that at this point it's being used. It's being used as a political tool.
But no, we're not very sure.
Well, I mean, just
Remember,
look at what we've seen so far.
We are at the level of political rhetoric. It's just begun. The group went round, collected their views, which already were known. And if you
Generally.
look at yes, exactly. But now, round two, they're politicking. That's why I brought in this discussion. How does it become the tool that actually changes Kenya conclusively so that we begin on a path that is going to take us to this promised land of development, this promised land of inclusivity, this land where everybody has an equal footing and an equal share in what we have? The BBI could do this. It may require reformatting, it may require rebooting, it may require regurgitating, whatever it may require, but it can. It can because it has brought about two important things. One, the leadership that seemed to be at each other's throats in 2017 are now talking. Every time we've had this sort of situation in this country, we have moved forward. When we've put personal interests aside, interests were put aside at independence. They said, guys, there's this gentleman called Kenyatta. He's our leader. The independence thing we like, but release him so that we can carry on. We had people who were in the opposition. They said, okay, we'll put our interests aside. Let's all join KANU. We moved on until 2007 because in 2002, that sense of unity was with us and the country supported this one thing. It was one of those elections. I don't think any president will see the sort in this country. The sort of votes that President Kibaki garnered. Newsweek, Times called us the most optimistic country on the planet.
On the planet.
Yes. But the Kibaki government, and they missed that boat, man, they missed it by miles. An opportunity to take this country to the step we're discussing now. It was available then. It was presented to us then. They missed it. We have yet another opportunity.
But it seems this is very ideal, CT, because, I mean, that could be what the BBI could stand for. When we talk about what it could be, we talk about what it could present, an ideal situation within which everybody who could be termed as a player in this whole political arena is doing what they should be doing, heading towards where they should be going. If that was the case, then it would be a beautiful initiative that could actually play out into something fantastic. But it doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, just look at the sentiments that we saw expressed over the weekend from whomever.
No, that's all right.
From the deputy president.
That's to be expected. It's politics and you expect it. And remember, with politics, whenever you hear people complaining, don't assume they're complaining. You've heard me say this, they're bargaining.
To whom? I mean, if you want to take the deputy president's sentiments, for example, I mean, it's of course he's complaining. He feels he feels left out. He feels that he's not in the middle of things, as it were. What we want to continue calling the inner caucus. The inner caucus. So you're not when it comes to the rallies and
has
such.
He been chased away?
Nobody chased him, of course not. But he feels that he's been targeted, and his allies also.
Well, he feel so because he has chosen to feel so.
His allies also taking the same stance and saying that, you know what, it's against us and against our leader in this case, who would be the deputy president, right? And then others who may want to use this particular initiative. Look, whether you're the inner caucus or not, CT, there are people who are using this initiative chosen to do so for political alignment.
Yeah, but it is a political endeavor. So
sure,
the political alignments are fine.
Right, but in their purview, it's not about the country and moving it forward, really. It isn't. It isn't about, for the good of Kenya, for the good of this country, this is why this initiative must go forward. At this point, no. It's who can I align myself with? The two principals who are leading this, who led the handshake through which then BBI was born, are the ones that people are looking to align with, as opposed to an agenda that's going to move this country forward.
You're discussing politics at its very basic. This is what people do in politics.
Right, absolutely. But this is what people also need. This is the thing. It must be at that very basic for people to understand what really is going on. And for people to see beyond this smoke screen of what really is the case. That yes, you may have a beautiful initiative having been set in place for cohesion, maybe enhancing or emphasizing the very tenets of the Constitution, for example. But then politicians are hijacking it for you to truly understand. People want to read the document, but it's not available to them.
They don't even need to hijack it. You see, remember we are at the stage where they're still collecting views. We are offering views. This is what we're doing here. This is what a talk show is all about. You have a situation where you are saying this and you keep saying this at these rallies. May you say some more. And those your detractors will have their say. May they also say the same. But the point is this. That can change. I am talking about an opportunity that the leaders of the BBI have. And I'm saying don't miss it like it was missed in 2002. Don't miss it. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to write literally everything we've been talking about. You can call every change BBI. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to set many things right. Now, with politics, that opportunity also presents other people with an opportunity to have a certain view and to present themselves as an alternative leadership. It's just politics. If you look at the way people have moved out of parties and moved back in again and moved across and moved horizontally and vertically, it should tell you that this shouldn't be anything to alarm you. If you look at the movement, if you go back to 2002, 2007 and ask yourself, all these players that we're talking about, which parties were they in? There was no Jubilee, so they were not in Jubilee. Where were they? Some of them have been in the same party. Some of them have been in opposing parties. That is the normal movement of politicians in this country. They are not doing anything that hasn't been done or anything that is not considered to be part of the norm of the politics in this country. It's normal. But remember, we sometimes judge our political parties and structures with political parties and structures that we don't have. Our political parties are not based on any strong ideology.
Unfortunately, across the board, right? No, across the board, it doesn't matter. Throw a stone, where is it going to land? There's nobody who has an ideology that they follow, that people then are aligned to because
they do have an ideology. It's just that
people don't stick with it, and unfortunately, you can't then.
It's not documented.
It isn't, and then you can't see that if somebody is joining a party, for example, that this then is what they are after. So it's not clear for you to say that somebody has joined whichever Jubilee party tomorrow and say, I've joined this party not because of myself as an individual, but this is essentially what I stand for. Unfortunately, we don't have this in this country. It's not clear what that is at all. So it is what would be clear on the other side, though, is that people then join parties to be able to get a foot in the door, to then propel themselves forward. That is what it is.
And on that, political parties, agreed.
Yeah, political parties in this country are vehicles for individual politicians.
Special
very clear.
Purpose vehicles.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Not for anything else. And now when you see something like this, and unfortunately when you see all of those individuals on the dais, the optics are fantastic because you want to have been seen to be among. right? And so people are going to remember you. Look at what happened in Meru over the weekend. Look at what happened in Narok and Garissa the weekend before that, and in Mombasa and the weekends before that. It was all who was here. Who was here then who would have then been counted among the living, as it were, when it comes to politics. And unfortunately, BBI then is what happens before the rally, and then nobody's really discussing that. Everybody's looking for what would have been the drama during a particular rally, and let's see if we can talk about that particular thing.
You know, if you look at what happened in Meru, I am going to skip the drama. I am not going to discuss the drama. I'm going to look at the fact that we had a BBI rally in Meru. And I'm going to ask who attended that rally from that region and who attended that rally from the rest of the country.
Right.
If you look at the composition, it will very clearly mirror what we're calling the handshake, right? And it will tell you that the one thing that seems clear is that there's a very large part of the country that seem to be in agreement as to what they should do. The details will be ironed out. Rallies are supposed to showcase. They are supposed to give you the optics. They are supposed to give you a representation of what they want. When you have leaders from all over the country, all centering on Meru on that one day, and then you look at the lovely garments, the designer garments that people wore on the day, the designer hats that people wore on the day.
That's what you remember.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. As I said, I'm sidestepping the other drama of who walked out, who walked in. It's becoming a trend. People come to the rally and walk out amidst complaints that they are not being treated fairly, they are not being listened to, their leaders are not being treated fairly. You know,
that's what you see and that's what you remember, unfortunately,
yes.
Isn't
Now,
it?
all that, as far as I'm concerned, may very well be so. But if I discuss it, I'm going to make it central to the BBI. And I am determined that the BBI must be about a larger picture.
Let's see what that larger picture is. Let's take a look at what's happening with weather, and then we will come back and look at that larger picture as concerns BBI. In Nairobi, we see the sun peeking out at some point. 18 degrees, partly cloudy conditions to carry on through the day. Possible rain later on with highs of 24 and lows of 19. In Nakuru at 16 degrees, partly cloudy conditions as well with highs of 24. Coming into Kisumu at 21 degrees, partly cloudy conditions. Showers expected in parts of the city. And Eldoret at 15 degrees, sunny conditions, partly cloudy conditions to follow later with then highs of 24 and lows of 15. In Mombasa, 26 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, showers expected later with highs of 24 and lows of 15. In Nakuru at 16 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, highs of 24 as well. Take a skip over into East Africa, and in Kampala, 21 degrees, showers expected later. It's cloudy conditions through the day today. Dar es Salaam at 26 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, highs of 32 and lows of 15. Take a look down into Johannesburg, currently at 16 degrees, partly cloudy conditions with highs of 21 and showers expected later. It's hazy in Lagos today, right now at 28 degrees, partly cloudy conditions will follow later on with highs of 36 and lows of 25. Take a skip over into Europe. In London right now at 5 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, highs of 10 and lows of 1. In Paris, currently at 4 degrees, highs of 7 and lows of -1 with partly cloudy conditions through the day. And wrapping things up in New York at 5 degrees, it's clear skies this morning, highs of 12 and lows of 2.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice
This
FM.
is Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room. You're tuned in right here in Nairobi on 94.4. Wherever you're catching us around the country, we are live and live streams up Facebook, Spice FM KE, Twitter, and YouTube. You can catch us in the studio and online. My name is Nduoko, and in the studio this morning with C.T. Muga, and we're looking at issues BBI. But before that, some nuggets of African wisdom.
Well, if you look at the situation that is under discussion, it brings to mind a proverb that is, well, it has its roots in Kenya as well as Zimbabwe. And it's put simply this way. Until a lion starts writing their own stories, hunters will always be the heroes. Well, lions can't write, so I would assume the lions would need to write. Hunters, being human beings, already know how to write. At least we assume they have the ability to learn how to write. Yes. So the day lions learn how to write their own story and what they do, those who have the monopoly of writing the story will always be the heroes.
Of course. Well, let's look at how things unfold, and we'll talk about how those lions maybe can write their own story in a short while.
Or how they can learn to write.
Or how they can learn to write. Speaking of those who may be writing history or rewriting history, still talking about issues concerning BBI and then looking at the political dispensation currently in this country. Having then taken things by storm, CT. But unfortunately, before we went on the break, we were talking about, what we saw, who was dressed, who spoke or did not speak, who may have had a sore throat. And then that was then used to talk about the fact that he couldn't even speak. He really had nothing to say when it comes to Raila, for example. He didn't speak much. And anybody who would want to have listened to him at that point was that he had a sore throat. The man couldn't speak because he was unwell. But it has been then interpreted to mean so many other things, that he had run out of steam and that he could not face the Mount Kenya crowd, and so basically in this case lost his voice, and that literally lost his voice because he couldn't face the Mount Kenya crowd. And a lot has been taken away from what would be the authenticity of a forum like this, whereby we'll be talking about moving the country forward. And the optics that you're talking about then kind of shifted things. We looked and heard and saw and listened to what people said or didn't say. People walked out when it talked about Senator Murkomen and how he left Raila Odinga having not or said something because of the state of his voice. This is then, characterized or interpreted to mean so many different things. Why is it that he didn't lose his voice through any other rallies, for example? Why is it that he was able to speak? But then this area where it has always been a point of contention as to whether he commands any kind of percentage of the population, the man didn't have a voice. So
what they're saying is that he's not allowed to be sick.
This is the thing, because in this case, when he is sick at this point, then that means that, he was not able to face the Mount Kenya crowd, whereby there has always been contention. And so in this case, he literally lost his voice, could not address the crowd.
Clearly, anyone who is a proponent of that perspective clearly has a very ill-informed perspective on history. Because if we go back to the aftermath of the election of 2002, there's hardly any place in Kenya where Raila was received with more aplomb and praise than in central Kenya. Yes, he was received well. Resounding applause, he was received. And in the times gone by, in the recent past, he has visited the Mount Kenya region, as have other political leaders. And if one could point to an occasion where he visited the region and was turned down and was booed and was heckled, then I would say, indeed,
this is true.
He needed to prove a point that he perhaps needed to build a certain consensus. But this hasn't been the case. There is no visit that he has had in central Kenya. In fact, one could argue that central Kenya has received all the leaders who've gone there. They've given them a listening ear. From the deputy president to the president to Raila, they have been received. They have been listened to. So, if anyone wants to make hay of this particular sliver of sunshine, then, of course, that is their prerogative. But let's go back to what I was saying earlier on. There is this narrative that has been in our media, and this narrative, unfortunately, was called out by the Media Council of Kenya, and the Guild of Editors also called the Media Council of Kenya out. The Media Council of Kenya said, you guys, you have some headlines that are a bit misleading. the things that you've been saying that maybe don't really add up if you do the maths. And the gathering of editors came back and said, you know something, you are curtailing our freedom.
We should be able to report in the manner in which we feel necessary.
And of course, the underlying statement here, the unspoken underlying statement was that with some of these headlines, you are not being responsible, and you must be responsible. Now, this is a healthy situation. When the media itself, the governing council, and those who actually ensure that information reaches the public are having this sort of discourse, it's a good thing. It's like having gone to a court of law. It's a court of law having a discussion with people who've gone to it and saying, your interpretation of this law is not actually the way it should be. It should be this way. Why I'm saying it's a good thing is that editors will now pause and think, is it that what we're doing, even as we're discussing this, could we have done better? The issues that they've raised, if they point it out, might they perhaps have a point? Might they actually have something that they need to say and present? Remember, this is against a backdrop of an accusation that has been leveled at the media, that the media actually takes sides. That in itself may not necessarily be damning because the media does take sides.
Yes, we know.
Yes.
Of course. Around the world, we're not just talking about Kenya.
Some
Around
people
the
have
world,
fixed positions.
It's clear,
and
their
you
position.
know they support this particular view.
Yes, yeah.
But there is a little issue of brown envelopes. There's been a say, there have been rumors, there have been whispers that people within the circles of the media are bribed.
It's brown envelope journalism. Exactly. It has a name even.
That has been the accusation. And this is what has hung over. Whenever such a discussion comes up, that is the elephant in the room, so to speak, or so to say. No one is saying it, but it's what is saying. Why is it that this is happening? Because it's tainting the image of this institution that is actually called the fourth estate. This debate hasn't ended.
Nope.
And as we move towards 2022, it likely get even more heated. But even as we have this debate, do we then allow what we see as the theatrics of the BBI, do we allow it to take center stage? And I'm saying no. If you want to attend a rally, attend. If you want to walk out, walk out. If you want to complain, complain.
Well, it could be also that as I look at this and I try to dissect it a little further, I think we've come to the real politicians, if we want to look on the other side as well, whether it means taking sides politically as media, politicians have also realized which media will. They've realized where the focus will be. They're expecting people to come and watch this grand show and expecting that these things will be reported or talked about in the days to come. So they're out to put on their best show for the media because they know that is what is going to be talked about. That's what is going to be presented. It's going to be on the tongues of people for the next week until the next show comes about. So they themselves are priming and they have been primed. You know, they know that this is what is going to come out. So who is expected to report what?
This drama is mistimed and ill-timed. You know, when people are grappling with serious things like illnesses and hunger, joblessness, hopelessness, depression, a feeling of worthlessness, there's a limit to how far that sort of entertainment would be. That entertainment works well when other things have been taken care of. When people genuinely have to worry about the next meal, they will pause and say, why am I putting up with all this drama? What do I need this for? Because you don't need it. How is this helping me? This person who's shouting and making noise, supposedly on my behalf, how exactly is this going to help me? Why I keep saying it's a good thing is because it brings the debate, or it ups the ante. It brings the discussion to a different level. So now people start questioning the very things that ordinarily they wouldn't question. And that is, how exactly are these people representing my interest?
But then at the end of the day, you see, this is an unfortunate thing because we have a baby and bathwater situation here. Whereas the BBI could represent something that would be fantastically beneficial to this country. With all this fanfare that we see about weekend on end, people are going to throw Kenyans will decide that everything about this process they want nothing to do with, and they're going to toss it all out. This is what I'm talking about. That there could be something fantastic to gain from this, but because of this constant nonsense that we see from politicians weekend after weekend, the drama that we see and that ensues about who wore what or who didn't say the other thing, people are going to say, well, you know what, just like you said, we have other things to worry about. Coronavirus is here knocking on our door. The locusts have been resident here for a minute or two. The health system is on its knees, and here we are talking about which politician caught a cold or not. Seriously speaking, everything will be tossed out the window. People are not going to give a toss. And we're getting to the point where people actually don't. Oh, okay, so where are they going next weekend? What have we heard so far? That, okay, doubts on the plan to hold the BBI rally in Eldoret because the team is charged with the leading campaign yet to set a date for the meeting because they're afraid that there's going to be violence because it is in Eldoret, which is the DP stronghold.
Let's see how this one plays out. The truth of the matter, Eldoret is, that region is one out of how many?
One out of how many? But of course, hold sway for this gentleman who says that reggae will be stopped.
You know something? If people don't go to Eldoret, ask yourself the question, who gains and who loses? By the way, I differ with you on one point. People will attend these rallies.
Well, I mean, this is what they say. They
may
not hold the rally even because they're
they-
afraid that people will not go. Or that they're afraid that if people do go, that there will be violence and people will be tussling in terms of
Violence
power.
in this country has to be fermented and has to be engineered. It's not organic. It's not some people go somewhere and then suddenly, it'll have been planned. There will have been people paid to cause mayhem.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
That's the truth. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads as we come back and continue with this conversation. We're going to open up the phone lines in a short while and hear from you in terms of, are we looking at a baby bathwater situation? Will BBI be thrown out essentially in the minds of Kenyans? All right, still on Thika Road things this morning. Roy Sambo at a snail pace, trying, of course, to join the traffic that is on Thika Road right now. Mombasa Road is moving very slowly, but it's moving all the same today. It's a good thing for a Monday morning, whereas we're usually at a gridlock. It's the pain, I know, but it's moving very, very slowly. All right, of course, the construction company building the footbridges on Thika Road are moving very slowly, and this means that one lane has been closed. That's why you see the extended traffic that we see on Thika Road. GSU Allsop survey is still locked. Coming out of Wayaki Way this morning, we saw some issues, but it's opening up just a little bit. Likoni Road is chock-blocked. Avoid it if you can. Of course, remember that until the 13th, certain parts of the roads in industrial area will be closed. This will affect Likoni Road. It'll affect Enterprise Road. So this is what is happening there this morning. The Southern Bypass at Kibera today, it's traffic. And of course, if you're coming off of Mombasa Road and then trying to join Langata Road, what you'll be faced with is a very slow situation. The Eastern Bypass going towards Utawala, though, you can use. We'll let you know other things. Please do let us know as well what you see. Spice FMKE on Twitter, 0719-012-600. Give us a call. We want to keep moving. It's Monday morning. Things are at crazy proportions.
Spice FM, Nyeri. Mature
In the Situation Room, broadcasting live in Nairobi on 94.4, Mombasa on 87.9, it's 96.0 in Nakuru, 87.9 in Mombasa, Eldoret at 96.7, it's 90.9 in Nyeri, at 102.5 in Kisumu, and Malindi on 97.7. Remember, we're broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Spice FM KE is how you can find us and see us while listening to us. My name is Nduo Cohen in the studio this morning with CT Muga, and of course we are discussing the politics of the day with the BBI rallies that we see. More is coming up in Eldoret this weekend, or maybe not, as opposed to what might be prescribed to be violence that could be imminent in this situation. We are taking your calls on 0719-012-600. We'll hear from you in a short while. Let us know what it is that you think about the political temperatures in the country right now. CT.
Yes.
Violence or no violence, whatever might be the case when it comes to Eldoret this weekend. Of course, this is something that unfortunately for me, I see that, we're already saying something that could be, because of the fact that William Ruto, the deputy president, has said he's stopping this thing. If this is the way in which it's going to go, the lies that have been told, the false testimony that has
just
been
pause,
born.
Pause for a single second.
He wants to stop this entire train.
Pause for a single second. What are these powers that he has to stop this process?
He's the deputy president of the country.
No. He is the deputy president, and we have a president. He's not an assistant. He's not a vice president. We understand. He is. The powers, there are powers the Constitution gives the deputy president. Chief one, he's the principal assistant to the president.
The president.
All right. What powers does he actually have to stop the BBI rallies? What? Remember, the BBI rally in Eldoret is one rally out of very many. One. So if that doesn't take place, does it mean the others won't take place?
Of course not. But I mean, of course, it bears some kind of significance and importance.
No, it doesn't. It actually doesn't. If you are going to have significance, you must stop all the rallies. Then the BBI rallies stop. BBI rally stop in one particular part of the country. It means that particular part of the country didn't have the BBI rally, but you haven't stopped the BBI juggernaut. You haven't. So my question is, what is this thing that the deputy president has in his arsenal that will guarantee that this process is stopped, except or apart from throwing words at it, saying, I am going to stop it? What is it?
Clearly, I mean, at this point, it is throwing words at it because, look, they're not demigods, these politicians, right? They're human beings like you and I. And it is clear that it's clear that the deputy president at this point has suffered from a bit of, uninclusivity. He's not been included as per what he's been taught.
Was he excluded?
No, he wasn't excluded, but in terms of, look, this is open, everybody come. He chose not to go. He chose not to be president, and that was evident, right? He still feels as if this train has left the station, and unfortunately, I didn't get a ticket. It's clear that that's what it is.
Were
so by the time he
being
opens,
given tickets, or was it open season and anybody could grab for a ticket?
Yes. So in this case, he didn't grab, right? So that doesn't then give him any kind of leg to stand on when he says he wants to stop this thing.
No, he does have a leg.
If he wants to, what leg does it give him to stand on?
But
if he
this
says
is the leg he's
wants to
using.
stop this thing, if it's going to go towards lies, which is what he spoke about, if it's going to go towards hatred, another thing that he spoke about, and dismantling whatever kind of political gains that had been made over time when it came to cohesion and unity.
Okay.
Right? Now, if this BBI is not going to uphold those things, then he will stop it.
Why don't we just start and examine each of those issues? This cohesiveness that he feels the BBI might be fighting against, which one is it exactly? Which one is it? Because if you look at the narrative around BBI, it was to create and preserve the very thing. That very thing. This country was tearing apart. You didn't need to be a clairvoyant, neither did you need extraterrestrial powers to understand that we were doing badly.
Sure, the handshake was the stitch that saved, was the stitch in time,
Yes.
literally, yeah?
So if there were lies, which are these lies?
That's what I'm telling you. It's sour grapes, unfortunately. At this point, it's clear, sour grapes.
I'm going beyond the sour grapes, and I'm saying, if I look at the way the political landscape works in this country, it is the voter that is always being taken for a ride. These statements are frequent as they are strong. I have to ask the question, the same question I asked of the coronavirus. What is it that we don't know? Remember, we had this discussion before. When you hear something, read something, pause. Don't listen and believe it. Don't take it at face value. Ask yourself, what is in the political arena that is brewing and that is happening? In the same token, if you read the papers of today, over the weekend, there was a group that went to Kabarak and prayed for Gideon. Right? If you look at the same paper, there is all this discussion and a beautiful map of the scramble for Kenya and the divisions and the players in the various regions of the country and what's happening. Okay? This is on page 6 and 7 of the Standard. And then there are these utterances. The good thing about the utterances from the deputy president, they're consistent.
They are.
Yes, they're consistent.
That, Siti, if I could just interject at
Please
this
do.
point. It's true. He's never gone off course in all that he's been saying. If you just want to look at the last 18 months and how he's been speaking, he's never gone off course. If there's a narrative that he's been peddling, it's been standard. If it's the one thing is, why always me in terms of being targeted? Why always me? Secondly, he says, this thing, the way it's going, I don't really see that it's actually benefiting Kenyans. And I think we should stop it. He has never diverted from this. whoever may be advising him is actually, in that case, then very good, because they're basically telling him, look, if this is the thing that you're going to, stick to that thing, and he has stuck to it. He has not veered off.
But if he doesn't see it, you see, there is a tag that the members of the government and people who are opposed to Raila Odinga tagged him with as a perennial loser who was a perennial complainer. The deputy president and his advisors need to be careful. They're taking over that particular narrative. Because if it's why always me, you are becoming a perennial complainer. Yes. What though you do is you focus on yourself and people look at you. But you're being focused on as a lame duck. The why me narrative paints you as a lame duck. Okay? Not as a strong goose, lame duck. Okay? That's number one. Number two, if there's the narrative of why is this always happening and you're in the government, we then have to ask, when did you take over the role of the opposition? You are in the government. I thought it was you people who are supposed to fix these things.
How on earth are you then on the outside?
Yes.
Because this is the outside that you seem to have taken up residence, and then you're complaining about it at the same time. How then did you end up on the outside? Yes. That means, because then we could fault you then. If we want to look at it critically and remove the pieces, we could then basically say, then you're not doing your job of holding the day.
We have to ask.
Because if the president is your boss and you answer to him, and in his absence, you basically will be ruling this country.
What's your term of reference, sir?
Right. So what exactly is it that you are doing? How can you then be on the outside if this is a government initiative?
Yes.
If this is the president's project, as it were, and you, in your capacity as deputy president, are supposed to be assisting the president, representing his wants and his desires, you can't say something out of the side of your mouth and then profess something out of the other side, unfortunately. So I think it needs to be very clear. Where are we going with this thing as far as you're concerned?
No, where is he going? Because
that's what I'm saying. As far as you're concerned, you being the DP.
Or the third party.
Right.
So the question I'm asking is, are we, the general public, being taken for a ride and being played yet again? See, it's a question I must ask. Because all these movements, all these shenanigans, and against a backdrop in this country where politicians who at some point may have seemed to be at each other's necks suddenly become the best of friends and the best of bosom buddies. You see?
Or those who were friends then appear to be enemies. Yes.
And then there is the larger picture in this country that we have of political alignments based on tribal affiliation. I'm using the word ethnic. Tribal affiliation. That also has a significant role in our politics. And I'm asking, what musical chairs is actually going on right now? If this narrative of exclusion, which the deputy president himself seemed to be propagating, catches ground, then the reality that he keeps talking about, and which up to now is not really a reality, will become a reality. And he will be isolated.
So he's not. So we're looking at the isolation that he says he feels at this point, or asking that, why is he being sidelined or sidetracked? It hasn't really come to be per se.
Look,
are we looking at a time, City? According to what you're saying, you're looking at a time in the near future when it will be that you will be isolated.
It will be real.
These feelings that you say you're having now, it will actually be the case in a very short period of time if you continue peddling this narrative.
Genuinely have been genuinely set aside. You'll have no power. Because right now, if someone has the means to speak his mind in the media on a daily basis, has the means to travel and talk, meet the public unimpeded, has the ability to attend these BBIs but has not attended, has people... And yet there's a narrative about not attending. If the BBI rally doesn't take place in Eldoret, this process of isolation that has been talked about in third and fourth persons will start being a reality.
A reality.
Because other parts of the country will have had a BBI rally except this one.
Where it's supposed to be your stronghold, as it were.
Except. So essentially, someone will have moved more and more towards becoming the official opposition, or being a unique position of being a deputy president as well as the leader of the opposition.
It's interesting because then on the same Friday, of course, this is 2 days ago, we saw the little article or the little sentiment where he basically said, look, I actually don't know if I'm going to run for president in 2022 or not. So you see now these are words that we don't know if he was throwing it in there to kind of suit this same narrative. But then, of course, it has come out that he said, you know what, we're all here making all of this noise, but I actually don't know if I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for this competition. opposition in the next 2 years or not. So basically kind of everybody, okay, taking a step back and having an aha moment and saying, okay, well, with all this noise and all this alignment and political alignment and such, the gentleman could decide that he's actually not going to run for president. You see, but now if you want to look at this BBI, CT, and unfortunately I'm at the place whereby, again, any gains that could have been made on the terms of cohesion and unity in this government could actually be thrown out the window because of all the politics that we see surrounding this initiative and not actually taking what could be for gain for this country. And unfortunately, we might lose a very, very good thing if it continues the manner in which it has been. And this is something that's going to be time-stamped on the minds of people. It's not going to be about the initiative. It's going to be at what do I remember from the Mombasa rally? What do I remember from the Narok rally? What do I remember from the Garissa rally? As opposed to what is it that is coming out as very important that needs to then be stamped on the government of the day that could make this country better. That's what people are going to remember.
True, but also remember that politically what we are seeing is a maturation process. Our political process is actually maturing. When you have these unique situations where someone in government is actually playing the role of the opposition, it's unique and it's good for the country. When you hear people within one party seeming to have two different camps, you're talking about democracy. It is good.
It's a good thing.
Oh, these are good things.
Let's come back and talk about how good they really are. This is a situation where we'll take a break right now and come back and continue with the conversation.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Ice
FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk
This is
every morning.
Kenya's biggest conversation. CT, what's good?
What's good about it is, you see, when you talk about the political space or the space of freedoms being opened up, it's characterized by just the level of dialogue that is actually taking place and the diversity of it. You see, we are used to politics where someone who is supposedly in the opposition always presenting themselves as opposed to certain ideas within the government. But when you have this unique position where within government, was in Swahili wanazozana, meaning they are constantly at war, they're irritating with each other. That's a very good thing. It means that they have opened themselves up to actually displaying differences that may exist. That space, in so doing, has actually been opened up. It may not look like it because ideally they shouldn't be airing the dirty linen in public. But for political purposes and for political space and the opening of it, it's a good thing. Now, consider also the situation of the BBI. If you look at every rally these people go to, you will see a difference.
We'll see a difference.
Yes.
Let's take a call right now, CT, and let's hear, and then we can come back to what this difference is. Musa in Nakuru, good morning. Hello?
Yes. Good morning.
Yes, Musa, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm listening to you this morning.
Yes, Musa, karibu sana.
Asante. Now, one thing I'd like to thank you guys for the good work at the station.
Thank you so much.
I think it's the best alternative, and we are stuck to it.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
Finally, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I'm listening to what has been going on for quite some time on the BBI. On 2022. And it's shocking that I think Kenyans were going too low. For us in Kenya, it's like the end of the world or the end of Kenya is in 2022.
Yes, it ends there, right?
Yeah. We have no plans for 10 years from now at all. We have issues of corona. Nothing much is being talked about.
Yeah.
We have issues about the economy. Nothing is going on. People basically are almost living in the street.
Yeah. Do you think, just as you go on with that, Musa, I mean, do you think that people are actually listening to the developing message of the BBI as we see for this country, or just the politics of the day?
No, this is purely politics. Because when you look at it, when I heard you guys talk about Ruto and being maybe in the opposition and still in the government, whether they're agreeing with his boss, so many things are going on. But surely, when you look at the issues of BBI, I don't think these are politicians. It is very little that is happening to the public. The economy, the agriculture, the private sector.
What about the large crowds that you see? What about the large crowds that you see every weekend that there's a rally, clearly listening and up in, some kind of euphoria, listening to these leaders?
But no agenda is being driven there. I mean, these are, basically, I would say these are guys who are just idling. There's nothing much to do.
Right.
So they just attend, and, at the end of the day, they leave, and they've gotten nothing. Yes, that's why I think. So this whole thing is just, to me, I'm sorry to say, but it's all rubbish.
Right. Many would be with you on that. Thank you so much for calling in, Musa. Asante sana.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, I mean, there it is, CT. It's interestingly said people who are attending these rallies have nothing to do on a Saturday or Friday afternoon, and that's why they're in the stadium, not or at these rallies, not necessarily because they feel that there's something beneficial that they're getting
there is
from
beneficial.
this.
It's entertainment.
Well, exactly. It's something different from what you would do as opposed to sitting at home having nothing to do.
How many people would you say have absolutely no interest in seeing political leaders? They all want to see these people. They've heard of these names.
These are political celebrities.
They want to see. They are celebrities. They want to see them. You want to have this discussion? I was at the rally. This is what I heard being discussed. So
then is it that the politicians are the ones then who are being deceived, that the people of Kenya are actually with them on this train? Because if it's entertainment for Saturday afternoon or Friday afternoon, then the political messaging that you're giving out really then is not being captured, unfortunately. So again, it turns out to be an exercise in futility. I dare say these rally after rally could be then exercise in futility.
No.
If the people that you're addressing are really not coming away with anything, how has somebody's life changed by this rally that they attended Friday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, and sees the country in a totally different light by the end of the day?
It would be an exercise in futility. Everything about the BBI ended with the rally. Remember, there's preparations before the rally. There's a lot of activity before the rally.
All right. Well, before we go on to that, let's pick a call then from Zachary. Good morning. Hello, Zachary. Good morning.
Oh, morning, Edu.
Yes. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Oh, fantastic.
Hi, Zachary.
Fine, thank you, Malim.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been told to keep my point, please. And this is exactly what I'm going to do. Now, from the start, when we saw some people crying that they have achieved what they never thought that they would achieve in their lifetime, I always knew this one thing, that marriage of convenience, and you know that term, it always ends in acrimony. Okay?
Yeah.
And any person who is engaged in a marriage of convenience, that come we stay because maybe I don't have money to rent a room and you don't have, so come we push effort. We put our effort together and then we be staying together. You are doing that because of, your benefit. It's a symbiotic relationship, is it?
Or maybe there's something, yes, of course, there's something that you can do for me at this time.
Definitely. That thing is what we call a marriage of convenience. And it will come to an end at a certain point. When I feel that now I have grown out of, this a weak link and now I'm strong, that is the time that you are going to see my true colors, okay?
Okay.
And therefore,
yes.
This thing, the BBI noise, in fact, this is the time that I'm engaging myself in the talk of BBI or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So, and the people who are attending those rallies, I hope you followed the event on Saturday. Some of them are saying that, we had been promised that you are going to get 3,000 shillings. We were given 500. In fact, you saw the noise they were making, yeah?
Yes.
So this is not inconsequential. It's something that is expected by those people who have been following the politics of this nation, or probably of other places, that government has been formed by convenience, or based on convenience. So that is my point. But we hope that all is going to end well, yeah?
Well, we'll see.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your call, Zachary. We'll see how things definitely unfold. Asante Sana for calling in.
Sure. Thank you. Do.
All right. Cheers.
Okay.
Oh, well, I mean, people being paid, complaining about 3,000 shillings as opposed to 500 shillings. We missed the point.
No.
The point has been missed.
No.
Look, CT,
it
come and
hasn't
be
been
paid
missed.
to attend a rally.
Yes.
Be paid to attend a rally, and
Yes.
the messaging that you want people to go home with.
Why
Clearly,
don't we
it's not-
start from the beginning?
By the time
and
the 500 shilling is in your pocket, you're done. You're not
No.
listening to anything else that
No.
anybody's
No.
talking
No,
about.
my
CT,
sister.
come on.
This particular point you've missed.
If you want to, if you are going somewhere knowing that as I was going, they've promised to give me a certain amount of money. By the time you have received that amount, you're done.
There's a point that you're missing. And
Please.
the point is political expediency rests on promises, the future. If you can receive 500 bob, you will also hear there are those who actually got 3,000. Whether they got it or not is a totally different matter. So the question which will be on your mind is, when are these rallies coming here next? And how do I position myself so that I can get this 3,000 bob as opposed to the 500 I got? If you are talking about crowds for hire, we've had them for the longest time. It's an entire industry, and they're captains of that industry who simply ask you, how many people do you need? What would you like them to say? And where would you like them to be? It's an industry.
Of course, it's an industry, but I'm saying, look, put this against the original message of the why is the rally there in the first place? If we're looking at BBI and you're looking at a new political dispensation in this country and looking at moving ourselves forward and saying that this is the way in which we are going to operate political business or government business moving forward. People are not interested in that. Whatever it is that you're telling them, clearly they're not interested. They have come to that rally, 1, to see these political celebrities that you talked about before. 2, to cash in literally on that promise that you gave them of however much you're going to give them to attend. Without those 2 things, they're not going to attend.
They
wouldn't attend.
Maybe not in such large numbers, but they will attend. And you're assuming that the fact that someone has received money, suddenly the propensity of wax in the ears has increased, so they won't hear. They will hear. They will even talk about it. You've heard me say in this very station on many occasions that the voter is a far more complex person than most people think. And they're not as uninformed as people think. And they know their interests more than the politician does. And so, and I've said this, so let me repeat it again. The person who's being taken for a ride here is not the citizen, it's the politician. The citizen, the voter, the crowd, they know exactly what their agenda is. If there's money to be had, let us take it. Doesn't stop them from listening. Doesn't even stop them from being involved in the debate about what should happen. If anything, it enhances it, because now you have a discussion point. What you've done and what the money signifies, that we've moved to a point where we've commercialized the entire political enterprise so that people will come, they will even vote, but they also want money. It doesn't mean that that is going to influence where they vote. No. Attendance fee. You want them to attend, you pay. If you want them to do something else, you pay for that also. If you want something else, meaning they've itemized it. Attending rally, fees.
Right, but of course.
If you want me to vote, something else.
But
if you want me to come to another rally, another payment.
But why do politicians pay for rallies? Of course, it's the optics, because you want people to come in and see that the place is full, that whomever I may have been arguing with over the week, or whatever expressions I had put out there, I'm showing you that at this point when I came to speak to these crowds of people, they came out in their numbers to hear. Now, whether they went home with anything is a totally different discussion. It's really for others to see that this side that I'm pushing has actually been greeted by very, 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 very many people in the room, or in the crowd, as it were. Now, whether the message has been passed forward is something that you really have to ask yourselves later is, are Kenyans really with it when we talk about the BBI and the messaging therein? Are Kenyans really with it? Have they heard? And are they going along with us on this? But again, for the politician, as you say, at that point, they're not looking at whether Kenyans have gotten it. They're looking at Was this place full? And then do we have a message then to pass on to the people who may have been watching and who may have previously rubbished whatever it is that we had said? So it does play for them. But again, I think we are really risking losing out on what could be gained, in this political game. And yes, typical, throwing out the baby with the bathwater, because it seems that there's a lot that could be lost as opposed to being gained. Getting to the top of the hour, we're going to look at traffic in a short while and continue with the conversation. All right, round about 8 o'clock this morning.
Spice up your life.
May be on the road. Unfortunately, Thika Road is not getting any better. And of course, anybody who's getting in or out of Thika Road now must understand that a lot of the footbridges are being worked on. So that means certain lanes have been closed, meaning that you can only use a few. That is the problem. Wayaki Way from Nairobi School, there's jam all the way down to the roundabout at Westlands. Traffic on Jogo Road is crawling very slowly this morning. The southern bypass at Kibera is very slow. There's been 3 accidents there this morning. I don't know what happens in the morning, guys. Namanga Road at Kitengela, traffic is moving very well this morning as you join the Greater Mombasa Road. Getting into the city centre from the Thika Superhighway, of course, joining the Globe Cinema roundabout is A-OK. Coming into from Langata Road and then getting a roundabout to KWS and then to the T-Mall roundabout is okay if you use Bagathi Way. Of course, then trying to join Nyayo Stadium roundabout might not be as easy, but you'll get there anyway. All right, we know that there's a problem right about around industrial area with certain roads being worked on. So affecting Enterprise Road, affecting Likoni Road, and of course then once you do get out, affecting Jogo Road. If you see something that we should know about, tafadhali, let us know on 0719-012-600. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter. We want to be moving this Monday morning.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is
the only way to
Situation
start your day.
Room.
This is the Situation Room, tuned in to Kenya's biggest conversation as we continue with the conversations, nuggets of African wisdom.
Until lions start writing their own stories, hunters will always be the heroes. Mm-hmm.
Resonating, of course, already.
Hunters, heroes. They used to call it alliteration.
Right.
H, similar sounding word endings.
Of course, look into that with greater detail as we go along. Right. So, coronavirus having taken the world by storm, and this is what we're talking about now. We see country after country then having taken measures or bringing in measures to make sure that something actually is done and that things are taken care of. This, of course, comes after we reached the highest levels, almost 85,000 people, rather 85,000 infected cases around the world, 2,700 and some deaths, and with some countries, interestingly enough, who were warned and didn't do anything about it previously, and then got into a case where we see 888 cases in Iran, 21 deaths in the same country. Italy then, of course, being affected in a way that we previously didn't understand. If we just want to look at some of the numbers that we've been greeted with over time, South Korea, 2,931, Japan, 864, Singapore at 9 98. And if you look specifically then in Iran, 388, I beg your pardon, not 888, 388 cases and 34 deaths. South Korea, 2,931 cases, 17 deaths. And of course, these are the two countries that the government of Kenya has said seclusion for travelers from Italy and South Korea. Of course, they will be put in self-quarantine for 14 days. But if you want to look at what the world is saying and how this really has taken the world by storm, we do have an issue here. We have a situation whereby the country has now moved to restrict travel. We've seen the planes, or rather any airlines coming out, any travels coming out of China have been banned in terms of what it's going to take to make sure that they don't land, or in this case, not take off at all. Of course, coming off the buck of talks that the Kenyans being held in Wuhan under lockdown will then, according to CS Kagwe, that talks are underway to have them brought home because it seems as if you want to be able to contain everything within your borders. We saw Saudi Arabia on Saturday, charter 3 planes to bring back all nationals into the country. Of course, we saw the first case of a case confirmed in Nigeria with an Italian who does business in the country having been confirmed, and we're going to actually have a call into the country later on in a few minutes and see what really is, because things have reached fever pitch across sector, across the world. We've seen people do so many different things, so many different measures have been put in place to make sure that this thing is countered, that things have been done to make sure that we don't get beyond a situation of or we don't get to a situation of helplessness should something happen. We've heard from the World Health Organization, of course, that where things have reached now, it is a problem. Just that we've heard COVID-19 may be 5 to 10 times as lethal as a seasonal flu, according to experts. This could be the death toll around the world. This could put the death toll around the world in the millions. A broad guess is that 25% to 70% of people in any infected country may catch the new coronavirus. Governments need to stop signaling that they can stop its spread. They cannot. Instead, they must talk to the public and enact painstaking logistical planning. When it comes to public health, honesty is worth more than hope. And this is what we were talking about before. I mean, whether you want to talk about coronavirus or whether you want to talk about anything else, absolutely important to say it as it is. Tell people what it is that they're facing. We had a virologist on the phone with us last week who said, look, these are some of the measures that you can put in place to make sure that you yourself as an individual are protected. But at the same time, the broader scale, when it comes to governments, there's certain things that need to be done. Because we were doing a dalliance with, okay, maybe this thing is actually, viral warfare, or if we're dealing with a political statement coming out of China to make sure that their economic gains are hampered. But people are actually getting sick. Infections are on the rise. Countries that we didn't expect are actually being infected. If you want to go down the list, China, South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, Taiwan, Malaysia, Vietnam, Macau, the Philippines, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Cambodia, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Iran, Kuwait, Bahrain, the UAE, Iraq, Oman, Lebanon, the United States, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Algeria, Egypt, Nigeria, Australia, New Zealand, Italy, France, UK, Germany, Spain, Sweden, Croatia, Norway, Russia, Switzerland, Greece, Finland, Romania, Denmark, Georgia, the Netherlands, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Belgium, Estonia, Iceland, Lithuania, North Macedonia, San Marino. I mean, the list it goes on and on and on. And here we have confirmed cases day after day after day. The world is taking notice. It's taking the world by storm. Of course, we don't want people to panic, but we're saying that certain measures need to be put in place to make sure that now that this global conversation is being had, locally, measures need to be taken.
Indeed. Let me perhaps roll back time a little bit and ask the question. We have a total of 83,906 cases. Mm-hmm. This is at February 28th, 2020. And we have 2,896 deaths so far. Mm-hmm. Now, and we have cases all over the world. we had reports that America had it under control, but now it's estimated that silently 1,500 people may have contracted, may test positive, but they are so far undetected. Now, there is the case of people who may have the virus but are undetected because they do not exhibit the symptoms that we know of.
Right.
Now, if you look at this and perhaps the speed with which it actually is supposedly spreading, the question that one has to ask is, when you say it is spreading, you are assuming that this is the assumption that unless it came from somewhere, it couldn't have existed within those boundaries before. Now, this hasn't been proven.
No.
Okay? Because the connection they've been trying to make with patient zero is, how has this person traveled? When were they? The first case in Brazil, the businessman had traveled to Milan. The first case in Lagos, the person was actually an Italian, had come from Milan.
Yes.
They keep trying to piece these things together. The cases that they've had in Philippines from individuals who worked on the Diamond Princess or some of these cruise ships. The cases that they're talking about in Japan, again, they say emanated from the people who had been the cruise ships. The deaths that they have reported, people who are either elderly or who had what they call pre-existing conditions. You look at South Korea, they say the presence and the prevalence of it has come from a certain church. All over the world, people are reporting incidences of the coronavirus. But as I said when we began the show, the one thing that we seem to have forgotten is that the other diseases for which hospitals all over the world have been set up and for which people have received treatment did not abate.
No.
It's not as though they said, Chief,
Corona
now
is
that
here,
you're
let's
here,
stop, yeah.
why don't we go on a sabbatical? Why don't we let you take over and do what we've been doing all along, making people sick, ensuring they get to hospital, and ensuring that the pharmaceutical companies make a bundle? No.
They're coming at it properly.
They are moving at the same pace. We seem to have forgotten that people still have heart diseases. People are still HIV positive. People have malaria. People have pneumonia. And the largest number of cases we have in our hospitals are from these diseases, and I'm talking about Kenya. These diseases that were prevalent before the advent of the coronavirus, they are still present, and indeed, they are still contributing to the majority of deaths in this country, including road accidents.
Right.
But of significance, and something that featured very, very prominently in today's paper on page 3, alarm over rising numbers of moms killing their babies.
Right.
In Kenya alone, we have had a case of, from 2012, women aged 15 to 49, okay? You are talking about a total of 464,000 induced abortions. When you induce an abortion, it means the fetus is killed. That's
Yes.
so that people can understand. All right? Now, if, again, you look at statistics, you'll say that in this country, that 40% of the pregnancies are unwanted. And they say it's in developed countries. And I've given the statistics for abortions. If you look at cases in this country, infanticide, killing of children, whether by giving them hot milk or by giving them alcohol, what has been reported in 2018 was 34. Kenya has had no death arising from the coronavirus, so it has been reported. On this continent, the number has not gone beyond 3. Okay? I am saying there are other causes of death on this planet, on this continent, in this country, that are more than those caused by the coronavirus. But none of these things have something that the coronavirus specifically seems to have. The speed with which it seems
To infect.
Yes. And the rapid speed with which it can bring about death. There's a lot that's unknown about it. But the question that I am asking centers around this. What is this thing that is unknown? Why am I giving these statistics? There are things that should have caused alarm. They are not causing alarm. The number of deaths by malaria doesn't cause alarm. Infanticide. A little shock doesn't cause alarm.
Well, of course, because I think because of the fact that it's not novel, right? It's something that has been with you over time. People have had malaria since time immemorial.
Yes.
People have, children have died since, forever. So it doesn't really cause any kind of alarm because it's something that you're used to. Now, something that is unknown, something that is new, something that came from outside and has the potential to cross your borders at an alarming speed, and that you really don't know. By the time you know that you have a sniff and a flu, for example, you're done. This is the thing that is causing alarm, that you don't really know what this thing is. Malaria, you know what it is. You can go, you test your blood, you get malaria, you're down for a couple of days, and then maybe you're up. But you know that it's malaria. This thing that people are saying could have been manufactured in a lab, this thing that people are saying that, has affected how many thousands of people, and then now is coming in and you don't really know about it because it is new, something that has never been heard of before. That's where we have a problem.
I have a bigger problem that goes beyond that, really. Because if I look at the one thing that, again, forms what you could refer to as a common thread, the thing that the coronavirus has done, it has had a greater impact on the economies, and it's going to have on the economies of the world than on the health of the people of the planet.
All right, this is a Situation Room. We're going to have a conversation. We're continuing the conversation, rather. We're going to tick into Nigeria in a few minutes and find out what the situation is on the ground. We'll take a look at the weather right now, and we'll be back in a short bit as the conversation continues.
Chilled Spice.
Nairobi at
Spice
18 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, and we see showers expected later on in the day with highs of 24. In Nakuru at 14 degrees, showers expected later there with partly cloudy conditions, highs of 24 and lows of 17. In Mombasa at 28 degrees, partly cloudy conditions right now. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 32 and lows of 27. Malindi holding strong at 29 degrees, partly cloudy conditions. Showers expected later there as well with highs of 32 and lows of 26. Coming around about to Kisumu at 22 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, mostly cloudy conditions to follow with highs of 29 and lows of 21. In Eldoret at 14 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, rain expected later with highs of 22 and lows of 18. Looking into East Africa, partly cloudy conditions in Kampala at 23 degrees, rain expected later then with highs of 29. In Dar es Salaam at 28 degrees, highs of 33 and lows of 26, and rain showers expected later.
Breathing life into the 80s. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Biggest conversation. This is a Situation Room, and you're listening in on 94.4 in Nairobi, and tuned in from Mombasa, and Nakuru, and Eldoret as well. You are listening in on 87.9 in Mombasa, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret on 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, 102.5 in Kisumu, and 97.7 in Malindi. Of course, we're talking matters coronavirus this morning, and of course looking at the first African nation to have a case that has been, or rather the second African nation to have a case that has been confirmed after Egypt then said this was not corona. We're joined on the line this morning with Hannah Onogwe, who is a writer in Nigeria, who's going to probably give us an insight as to what is happening. Hannah, good morning. Hello, Hannah. Good morning. Hello?
Yes, hello.
Hello, Hannah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Hannah. This morning, you're in the Situation Room with Ndu and CT Muga this morning. And of course, we're talking matters coronavirus. And just trying to get a feel of what is going on in Nigeria right now. Of course, looking at the social aspect, we've seen a lot of reports coming out of the news in terms of what people are doing. What is the public feel right now?
Well, I'm in Bayelsa, which is it's a few hours. It's a few hours from Lagos. It's about 7-8 hours, depending on how fast you are driving.
Right.
So for us here, it's not really as immediate. Of course, when we heard that it was in Lagos in Nigeria, we kind of took a collective breath. It was like, okay, it's on our doorstep now.
Yeah.
But as far as behavior and all that, the conversation has increased, definitely. And of course, the hope and prayer is that it doesn't spread. We've heard of the cases in Ogun State, which is close to Lagos. But really beyond that, although yesterday night I did hear about some cases in Plateau State, which they said had tested negative. But I wasn't sure about that piece of news. I haven't confirmed it yet. But so far, people are still basically, the same. We're just talking about, okay, what do we do next? What happens if it spreads?
Right.
But for now, it hasn't really come to that panic, stage yet. But now.
Of course, we see that, coming out of Lagos government, the Lagos governor talking about, administrative measures that they've put in place to make sure it doesn't spread. And then we've seen things like, people rushing around things like hand sanitizer and covering their faces with masks and such. Is it really what we see in the reports?
Well, yes, from what, beyond the news, we have people talking on social media. So we have people who are going out to buy sanitizers and face masks. And then you know how it is, especially in this part. The prices have gone off the roof. You find sanitizer that maybe it's 1,000, 2,000 naira.
Yeah.
Some go almost as much as 20,000 naira.
Wow.
And it's crazy. People are making, a profit out of, people being scared. And then it's scarce. So they don't really have, you go to shop, they say they say they don't have or masks outrageous, prices to buy masks.
Yeah.
And also, yes, the panic is slowly going on, but people are trying to take precautions, by having these things available. But the way it is, because people want to profit off it, it's going to be much harder to actually purchase these things.
Right.
To have some kind of protection.
Are people sure? Because if we look at what's happening in Nairobi, and people talking about confidence in the government to make sure that these measures that they talk about having been put in place, are people confident in Nigeria now? Just from of course, in terms of geography, Nigeria is vast. That's understood. But are people confident generally that measures have been put in place on a government side that things will be taken care of?
I would say not quite. If it's Lagos, we have that assurance for the Lagos state government. And then, like yesterday, I saw pictures. Some people had said the center they had put up was deplorable. But somebody had said no, he went around, he took pictures. About the readiness of staff and, facilities and, supplies, I don't really know. But the place looks fine from the pictures. But that's Lagos, So I want to believe they are confident.
Yes.
But about other states, I can't really say. Because I don't think we're all prepared. I can't say all the governments are prepared statewide to handle any outbreak.
Right.
And then I don't know if you heard what the governors forum said recently. They met about it and, they put out a public statement. They said, if you know you have the coronavirus,
really,
quarantine yourself.
So self-quarantine as well.
Yeah, so it's like, obviously they're not prepared for you. So it's like saying, if you have this issue, deal with it. And that's not something, to put confidence in the government. It's not something to say that people say, okay, these people are ready to handle us and, not even turn into something out of hand if it should come our way. So it was really very disheartening to hear that from governors. These are people who are in charge of the state.
Right.
And, they turn it into some kind of a joke. I don't know how, if you quarantine yourself, that means you should die, basically, I think.
Abby, on your own.
Just don't come out with it. If you have it, just stay home.
Yeah.
But I don't believe Lagos so far is prepared. to deal with, what they have on ground.
Right. Of course, the Lagos state governor talked and said that, the gentleman who was, confirmed with the virus is, of course, yes, under isolation, and that he was being taken care of. And then he would soon, when he was then tested and seen as to be okay, then he would be released.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning in the Situation Room in Nairobi. Of course, this is Hannah Onogwe from Bayelsa State telling us a little bit about what the situation is on the ground in Nigeria. And of course, this story continues to be followed globally. Hannah, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks.
There is a fundamental difference in responses. There are two countries on this planet that have some huge festivals just before Lent. Okay, and this is 40 days before the Easter celebrations. One is the Venice Carnival, and the other one is the Rio. Okay, the Venice Carnival was cancelled because of the coronavirus. The Rio one continued. So the debate around it is not even the virus; it is about the business around it. There were people who are testing some of these interesting gadgets that you use as watches to test the state of your heart. They were discussing issues surrounding face recognition gadgets that the government has set in place. Because they're saying with facial recognition gadgets, people who had been on the run from the law could be recognized. And there was the debate of, but people wear masks during these celebrations. Now, I will not be surprised that after this festival, that there's a spike in the rise of cases of infection within Rio, because these things involve large numbers of people in close proximity. Okay, you're talking about Brazil. We've heard of one case, but remember, the key thing here is not the case you've heard of; is the one you don't know about.
You don't know about.
That really is the problem. We've talked about the indicators, the symptoms, but we do not know what it is. That you see, with HIV, you didn't need to have signs of illness to be HIV positive. Your blood could be tested and you could be determined to be positive even if you looked healthy. I haven't confirmed, and I do not know if one can simply take themselves to hospital to get tested to determine whether they have the virus or not.
See, this is the thing, though. I think, and just combined now with the next thing that I was going to say on that, we've of course seen a report that came out yesterday that a lot of people, it's kind of like, you medicate yourself against the flu, right? To hope that you don't get it. You start to take some things, increase your intake of vitamin C and such so that it can fight for you.
Especially bolster your immune system.
Exactly. Bolster. But now what people are doing, apparently coming into the country so as not to then be ordered to self-quarantine, as it were, is that they started to take flu medication and antibiotics, so that if anything, it suppresses any symptoms that you would then present with at the airport. And we have here in Nairobi, and this is what we've had having been reported. And so when the questions are asked, somebody says, yes, actually, I've been taking antibiotics, or I've been taking this. And what it actually does is that it suppresses any symptoms that essentially they would be looking for. Now, it is at the airport when you come in that they do this test. And from there, if you have, they do, of course, they take in your initial readings, and then from there is when they now take you. It would be, in this case, Kenyatta National Hospital or in Mbagathi, and that's where the test is done for you. I don't think any tests are being done per se at the airport, and this is what we see now. But in terms of now the rapid response that we've seen coming from the Ministry of Health after the directive given by the president on Friday, do you see then now people are taking this a little bit more seriously in Kenya, CT?
No.
No?
No. I've heard words, and I've heard a lot of words. I'm waiting to see if those words can be translated into action. Then I'll be able to respond to that question. These words were uttered on Friday. We've seen committees. The new Minister for Health has made statements. We've heard words. Let's see what happens. Remember, if the World Health Organizations and the pharmaceutical companies that deal with such matters could tell us there's a standardized kit for testing, so all you need to do is go to a hospital and test, then I'd feel safe. You know why? So immediately before you start exhibiting signs, you can be put on treatment because it is known that you have tested positive for the flu or for the virus. Now, we haven't gotten there yet. So the danger is still imminent. There are people who would clearly be walking around and have been infected, and because they're infected, could also infect others. But we do not know.
Of course, The Economist tells us that, you know what, in this case, because we're dealing with something, because just off of what you've said, CT, that we do not know. And unfortunately, call them rumors, call it whatever it would be that would come out. But there have been stories that, there are cases that have basically passed through the fence, as it were, and have not been communicated. But the way to fight this thing then is honesty. Instead, governments must talk to the public and enact painstaking logistical planning. When it comes to public health, honesty is worth more than hope. So in this case, you don't want to hope that it's going to get better or hope that there are no cases. You want to be honest and say that the possibility of it happening in this country is real. It could happen. And so we're doing everything possible to make sure that it's not if it's going to happen, that when it does happen, we have put in measures in place to make sure that we're able to contain it. And that's the thing. Honestly, to be able to say we don't know. Don't say no. It's never going to happen in this country. It's never going to cross. We don't know that. You'd rather say it's not a matter of will it happen. It is going to happen. But when it does, we have made sure that we've done everything we can to make sure we deal with it as best as we can.
The gleam of hope in all this in America is with clinical trials that have started in Omaha, in Nebraska. And they are trying to bring forth an antiviral drug that can help diagnose this particular virus. Now, if you can determine the existence of the virus in someone's body before they start falling sick, that is how you're enabled to actually bring it to a complete halt. Not just reduce it, but bring it to a halt. But remember, America is now repatriating people who've come from Wuhan.
Yeah.
Okay? I want to move away from the epidemiological discussion around the coronavirus, and I want to look at the commercial effect of the virus.
Okay, can we talk about that when we take a look at traffic, and we'll come back and look at that in a short while. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll take a look at traffic and we'll be right back. All right, Jogo Road right around
broadcasting
worldwide. Trying to get into
worldwide.
the city centre by way of that back route. It's Monday on Waiyaki Way, that's for sure. Lion Place to Westlands roundabout is chocker blocked. It's bumper to bumper traffic, and it's going to take a very short time, or rather a very long time, to cover a very short distance. If you've passed the turnoff for the 87, unfortunately, you're going to have to go with this jam all the way through. Tika Road all the way to Kiambu Road and Kiambu Road, of course, being the bottleneck at the Pangani underpass. That means quite a lot of traffic goes to Murang'a Road this morning, and it's going to take you a minute to get into the city. Looking further afield, not much happening. Coming off Ngong Road is easy. Of course, we still have a bit of a problem right around Naivasha Road and then joining with the larger Ngong Road. Riara Road is an option today. The bypasses then joining to Langata Road, not as smooth as we'd like them to be, moving quite slowly, but hopefully that will open up in a while. Remembering that we're smack dab in the middle of traffic hour. Coming off of Mombasa Road also, still moving very slowly right around the SGR until the JKIA turnoff, and then as you get then down towards Bellevue, it opens up and then closes a little bit more before you get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. We're keeping an eye on industrial area right now because some roads have been closed. We'll let you know what it looks like. Please let us know what you see. Let's see how we can keep people moving this morning. Spice FM KE 0719 012 600.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Breathing life into the 90s.
Everybody, what's up?
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mornings
Biggest conversation right here in the Situation Room. My name is Ndroko, in the studio this morning with CT Muga. Wherever you're tuned in to us, you are listening and watching at the same time. 94.4 in Nairobi, and of course in Mombasa, tuned in on 87.9, Nakuru on 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, Kisumu on 102.5, and Malindi on 97.7. The live stream is up, and Spice FM KE is where you reach us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. CT, we continue with coronavirus.
Well, What I find interesting is that the Standard has published on page 4 and 5 details of what other countries have done. I don't see Kenya.
No?
Well, not on that chart. I mean, there's mention, of course. The article mentions what we've done and then what we are planning to do. Planning to?
To do from today.
Yes. No, we've been planning this for some time. We know that we set aside space. We know we've been told that we've trained 615 personnel. That's just about it. Okay, but that's not what I want to look at now. What I want to look at now is what I consider to be the vast economic effects of the coronavirus. When it first appeared, American civil servants chimed in and made some really unfortunate statements. Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, was credited with having said some of these unfortunate things. But in essence, what they were saying was this. This is a hoax. Made in China. It's a Chinese ploy. It's something they've done to achieve certain ends that only they know best. Okay. But the net result of some of that noise was this. The industries in China more or less ground to a halt. Literally. What that meant was that countries that deal with China and import things from China, which means literally every other part of the world, had a problem. And the problem was goods could now not come into the country. East Africa has been suffering because 4 huge ships that were supposed to have docked in Mombasa and Dar es Salaam have not been able to do so. 4. Since the outbreak, since the mention of this.
Yeah.
So it means people who deal in goods that are imported from China have to look elsewhere. But remember, if the goods are coming, the likelihood that they've already been paid for. America is probably China's greatest trading partner. So, both ways, you would argue that the commercial enterprises within these two countries have taken a beating. But that's not just that. China is referred to as the manufacturing center of the planet. So any country that had business in China, whether you are the Apple, the makers of Apple, whether you are the maker of spare parts for vehicles and heavy industry, whether you're a garment maker, whatever it is that you made, if it emanated from China, then it means that whatever business you're doing, if those industries shut down or were moving at a slower pace, so did your business. What is of significance is that this one, well, it's not one virus, but this particular family and tribe of this virus have brought almost the entire economy of this planet to a halt. People talk about World War III. People talk about the doomsday scenario that a war would bring. One has even seen movies of some virus that is so virulent that if it doesn't stop, the world would come to a halt.
Right.
Well, we don't really need to see a movie, do we?
It's here with us right here, right
It
now.
actually is here because we are not talking about the economic effects, and there will be dire economic effects. Even if the issue of the virus is brought to a halt, there is what you call catching up and there's what you call normalizing. And that in itself has an additional cost to it. But what harm will have been caused before we begin this process of normalizing? There are economies that will literally almost grind to a halt, really. Some of them will probably go to factory settings if this continues. Because the dependent on the business that is done with things that are brought from China will have been affected severely. So this is where now the doomsday scenario experts and people who like peddling this stuff have a field day. Those who are conspiracy theorists and do not allow their minds to actually halt at any stage, this way they have a field day.
Of course.
And the questions about the origins of this virus, apart not the geographical location, the ecosystem within which it existed before it started exhibiting, and whether it's only resident in China, and whether it's resident in other parts of the world, and what brings it about, and how you will know it exists. These are not things that have been under discussion. Everything around the coronavirus has been with China. Is it really so?
Is it? So, I mean, if you talk about it, just interesting enough with China, if you want to look at it as an economic bloc, but for the people as well, I don't know if I was gobsmacked from Thursday to Friday, and then Saturday, of course, on Sunday and listen to the sentiment that has come out of people's mouths when they say, you know what? Taxi drivers will not carry Chinese nationals, because suddenly the realization has dawned on them that it is Chinese who are carrying this virus. And in terms of public information, absolutely. I know you look at me in wonder. I said the same thing. Taxi drivers will not carry them. And if they do, they want to insist that they're wearing a mask, because they believe that any Chinese national in the country at this point is a potential infectee, right? People getting into lifts, and then people of Chinese heritage get into the lift. People want to get out. People saying, in the estate in which I live, there is an edict that has been put at the gate that anybody coming in of Chinese heritage must be wearing a mask. I mean, this is something that is real amongst people now, and saying, well, you know what? Heightened discussions around the globe, and even here within this country, we need to take care and make sure that we're not being infected. And that's the question. We had this, what we saw come out in social media the last couple of days, whereby a gentleman was confirmed to have had the virus, and of course it was not reported in the news, and there were people who were wearing masks all about the town. The particular estate then where he was is living, the management of the estate then wanted to kick him out, evict him no less, just because of this. So you want to play the economic hardships that many people will go through as a result of this, but also things like stigma, and then the question of xenophobia then is real. People now, because of this, have certain sentiments or that they're passing on to people of Chinese heritage, and it's coming out. Whereas you would live with people with no problem previously, the coronavirus then brings out some of these things that actually we're not so comfortable with people who are of a foreign nature in our space, especially when the potential risk of them infecting us is very real. And that has come out. So I think there are very many aspects to this virus that are now coming to the surface, and the people are now having the opportunity to discuss as a result of it. So yes, again, then Kenya's not very welcoming of the Chinese in this case, whereby the risk of infection actually is quite great.
It's not just Kenya. If you look at the unfair attention that has been meted on people of Chinese origin around the world. In the initial stage, it was being reported there's a very large Chinese population in Australia. Yeah. Even in school, children were making fun of individuals whose origin had been China, and they were even being shunned, and they were even being treated as pariahs simply because of this. The narrative, this is what I'm getting at. This isn't an issue that in my mind seems to have grown organically. There seems to be a push not to ask questions, but to accept that this virus is dangerous and this virus is spreading. The spread is what is there. But the clarity as to origin, yes, first signs were within the boundaries of China, Wuhan. It is reminiscent of the HIV virus.
Absolutely.
Story, first signs within the gay community in the US, first signs. Talk. There are issues around primates in Central Africa. Has anybody ever really come out? Do we really know the origin? Do we actually say, something? This particular virus emanated here.
What stops those then from telling us if they have this information, CT?
I don't know whether they have the information
because that
or
would be the thing. Or they don't know, because if we're looking at patient zero, of course, then having come out of Wuhan.
Know.
This is the thing. And I think that honesty then needs to come out at this point. We actually do not know. If then if you're having investigations trying to find out these answers, let it be plain and simple that this is what the case is. And we're not talking about the responsibility that you bear to the people of your country. We're talking about something that you bear in terms of responsibility to the world. Because if this is the epicenter, this is where it all started, then you need to share that information. Let people know this is who had it first, this is what could have been the cause, or we actually don't know and we are trying to find out.
Where the problem arises in all this is something very simple. World War II introduced us to something that the world didn't know. This is called it germ warfare. Then it became biological warfare, meaning microbes and pathogens that are actually created. The original form in which they existed is enhanced. It is given a little oomph. It's given a little turbo power. And then, this is where now the naysayers and those who like conspiracy come in. They say,
they have a field day here.
Yeah, no, And it lends itself to that, because if you can't give an explanation for this thing, then somebody argues, was someone testing something that they had in mind? And of course, they can't tell us they were testing it, can they?
Of course not.
Yes. Was someone, because we do know when it's germ warfare, biological warfare, these emerging economies, whether it's in the Arab nation, people have been blamed. They've said they've killed their people. Southeast Asia, we've heard of these. Where do these things come from? They are created. So if they are created, it means that these microorganisms are made to exist somewhere. Now, Wuhan,
Wuhan.
among the things that it's known for is precisely that.
Exactly. Biomedical research.
Precisely that.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, everyone knows that such facilities have the most stringent and the most protected security. More than anything you can think of. You know why? Because they know just how dangerous these pathogens are. They know. Now,
CT, are you saying that somebody lets the cat out of the bag?
I am saying the silence and the misinformation lends itself
to speculation,
to adding 2 and 2 and multiplying it while saying you're adding it. This information is to say all this information is available in the public domain, but in the absence of answers that one could actually say, we've been told this and this, then speculation will be rife.
Well,
That's
of course,
what I'm saying.
Of course, when there's misinformation, it creates a vacuum, and the people want to plug the holes with information that they have. This is not very difficult for them people to put 2 and 2 together. Wuhan, okay, what was it known for? Could something have seeped out of the, something have seeped out of the woodwork, and is that what we're facing now? And nobody actually wants to tell us the truth. I don't think the folks at The Economist were far off when they said, you know what, in this case, just tell us what has happened so that we know what it is that we're dealing with. Of course, that lends itself to then a loss of credibility from nations when you want to say on a global scale that you made such a mistake or that somebody was careless enough to leak something like that. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to open themselves up to that kind of vulnerability when it comes to the global scale and say, actually, yeah, folks, we cocked up on this one. But nobody wants to say that. You don't want to deal with a situation like that. But when you see that the lives that are being affected, we're looking at 27 countries, right? Almost 30 countries now that have been affected in one way or another. And then we're looking at the whole world having been affected by this, whichever way you want to look at it. The whole world having been affected when it comes to diplomacy, when it comes to trade, when it comes to, of course, the diplomacy now lending itself to things like bilateral or multilateral relations. That is what the world is talking about now. And if it was one mistake, if it was one slip by one person, I think it's about that time that information ought to be shared. Absolutely. We saw a Senator Cotton out of the US a couple of months ago, actually now, in the mid-January. And he said, you know what? Something is amiss here. Something happened that China is not telling us about. And at this point, I would tend to agree that if something like that did happen, this is the kind of information you want to share so that people know what really they're dealing with.
When HIV became the pandemic it was, and still is in many ways, very many drugs were tried and tested to try and see if they could contain it. And even trials were conducted among human beings. Among them, there was a drug. It was called Nonoxynol 9, N9 as it was called. When it was tested on human beings, and of course, it was tested together with the placebo to try and determine whether it was effective for those who are HIV positive among women. What was interesting was that it was found that women, let me just start, it was very effective in eliminating the virus. It eliminated it.
Yes.
But you see, the virus lives in the body of a human being, so you have to test it in the body of a human being. Unfortunately, the test that involved gels also proved that many women who used it formed greater lesions, meaning they had more wounds. So as a result of this, over 50%, there was a 50% increase or more in people who used this gel than those who didn't, in terms of their propensity to actually be infected by the HIV virus. So this was a drug that was known could kill the virus. But unfortunately, it did a lot of harm to the body. Host.
Yeah.
It was stopped. HIV has been with us for over 2 decades, well over 2 decades. In that time, people have moved from having enough ARVs that could form a mini pharmacy in your hands for intake on a daily basis to just 3 drugs, in some cases even 1 drug. extremely effective to the point where even with a sensitive test, you cannot determine whether someone has a virus or not.
Or not.
Okay? This is progress. But the one thing that has never been spoken of with any certainty, origins.
Even that's still an issue.
There are people who may know the origins and I don't, and this is a good time for them to actually correct me and tell me that they know the origins, but it isn't. Now, when you have a background of certain things that have ravaged the world and the ifs and buts and spits and false starts, then you lay the ground for a very fertile production of a lot of speculation. Now, the coronavirus is beginning and is fast acquiring this particular status.
Speculation, of course, then leading into panic. Should we be panicking? I guess that is a question that has come up many times. We're going to open up the phone lines. We're going to take a break right now. But when we do, I'd like to hear from you as well. 0719-012-600. We would like to know what you think at this point in time. And we'll take those as we come back from the break.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Breathing life into the 90s.
Everybody, what's up?
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
This biggest conversation. My name is Ndoko. You're in the studio this morning with myself and CT Muga. Of course, we're talking matters coronavirus this morning and trying to look into, the complexities of it and trying to understand it as best we can. Of course, then asking the questions with all of this and the speculation that is rife on the globe right now. Should we be panicking? And I don't think we want to throw any members, anybody into a tailspin of panic and say, what then should we do? Where should we run to? But at this point, I do feel that knowledge and information is vital at this point. As much as you know, it needs to be shared. If you don't know as well, that needs to be communicated, because also coming from a place whereby we don't know, how bad this thing really is. We don't know where it has really come from, but sharing that knowledge and information also is a good place to start when it comes to that. Not to forget, we are opening up the phone lines on 0719-012-600. Is it enough then what has been done so far? CTU said it's just words that we've heard so far. But we had a meeting that took place yesterday, on a Sunday, no less.
More words were uttered.
On a Sunday, no less. More words were uttered. Of course, we heard that, this committee now has been put together. Things are going to be done. Maybe we see Kenyans coming back from Wuhan. Maybe we see flights being stopped. Maybe, of course, we see that quarantining is going to happen for those coming out of South Korea and Italy. Is that enough? Self-quarantine, I'm sorry if I'm going to come at it, with a sledgehammer. I'm going to say self-quarantine in this case is not going to work. It's got to be government monitored. It's got to be government monitored quarantine at this point, so that we can be sure what we're letting out there. And I've said it before, and I think we need to take it seriously at this point. The phone lines are open, 0719-012-600. On the line right now, we do have Simon Kingondu, who is the Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Association. Simon, good morning. Hello, Simon. Good morning.
Yes, Dr. Kigondu here.
Sorry, Dr. Kigondu. Good morning. Karibu sana.
No problem, as usual. Good show.
Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to tie in a few things in terms of coronavirus and the BBI. They don't look like they can be tied, but...
There's a connection? Do tell.
I think the coronavirus threat, as we put it now, is a wake-up call to actually improve the whole health system. The input of the health workers into the BBI was improvement of human resources for health, which the way we were looking at was in terms of a health service commission. A health service commission would be able to increase the number of health personnel who are able to deal with anything. Therefore, the actual input for the BBI process in terms of health is a health service commission. And as Siti Muga put it very correctly, this devolution of health, which actually never happened, it's again we stress that the governors are supposed to take care of public health, which includes primary health care, prevention of disease, and finally, it's correct. The other diseases are still with us.
Right.
So we should use this threat to actually improve the whole health system.
Dr. Kigondo, we saw quite a lot that has been done over the weekend. Friday, I think you talked with us on Friday, and when we talked about the demand for some of these things to be put in place. Later on in the afternoon, we saw expression from the president himself saying, look here, certain things need to be done over the weekend. And then yesterday, we even had a committee sitting and talking about, measures having been put in place. Is it enough?
It's a start. Without political will, nothing moves. Without political will, then you will not have anything in place. But as, again, let me quote Siti Muga said, you must involve the professionals. The medical associations must take up the bulk as opposed to the political wing. So politicians should give the go-ahead, but they take a back seat and let the technical people take over. For instance, allowing the South China plane to land was probably a political decision. But medically, you'd never allow something like that if you are, in quotes, afraid of an pandemic. And if your health system is so weak that should the index case appear, then you will be in a lot of trouble. Yeah, so I think the technical people, the Kenya Medical Associations, and should have more say in such committees as opposed to political statements. And yes, it is correct. We need to do things medically as opposed to, let's wait, let's hope it does not come in. And then for the BBI, I think no mention has been done about health. We've had so many health problems and the biggest of them has been human resources for health. And the biggest for them has been a lack of a health service commission and a lack of a continuous employment of medical workers.
Well,
and therefore, you have a situation where you have a need and there is no one to actually do the work. And then the institutions that are supposed to be becoming centers of excellence in terms of health are put under counties, for instance, which may not necessarily prioritize health.
I got it. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kigondu, for speaking to us this morning. I think definitely that is a wider conversation that needs to be had in terms of health in the country and how terrible things really are. And then, of course, bringing in medical professionals to say, look, this is what we are dealing with and this is how we should going forward. Thank you very much, Dr. Simon Kigondu, the Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Association, for calling into the Situation Room this morning. Asante sana. Right, so we'll take a few more calls as we go on. Just looking at how we are handling this, of course, it needs to be collective. It can't just be a siren that is sent out and then people in particular sectors then now scrambling like rats on a ship, because that's what it feels like. President says something and everybody suddenly is very, very busy then to have something done, whereas perhaps could have done something before.
There's always an opportunity to do a lot before. Remember, we're talking about the BBI and what we said. See, my suggestion is simply this. A narrative that is created can be recreated. It can also be uncreated. There's nothing stopping the proponents of the BBI from making it the one political agenda that merged all the initiatives and the commissions that had been there before it together. There's nothing stopping it from ensuring that certain aspects within the constitution that have a direct impact on people, like these issues of health, are actually put right. There's nothing. It is the BBI. It is the Building Bridges Initiative. They can do anything to write these things. And there's nothing stopping them from even taking charge of righting wrongs that other people have been afraid of.
But it seems that there is something stopping them because they're not doing it. It seems like
that nothing is themselves.
They themselves are the ones who are stopping themselves from getting this thing done.
If your political agenda is greater than the interest of the national good, then clearly you have a problem, and it's about time you should think of a career move. You shouldn't actually be in that arena where you claim to be someone who wants to help or to improve the lives of people.
Right, because
change careers.
Absolutely. If we're looking at the health system, that's essentially what it is: making sure the custodian of the health of the people of this country. And if you're not, directly involved in that, then yes, you shouldn't be in that position.
You shouldn't be. And it's like if you are a doctor and your health practice causes more death than it makes people change, become a mortician.
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Of course, you're listening to us live on all our streaming platforms, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The conversation continues. We're going to come back after looking at the state of the roads and then come and talk about Nairobi. And really, the president has stepped in and ask ourselves, what does that really mean? Going forward, will Nairobi have a governor? What exactly is the impact as a result of all that has happened over the last couple of days? Keep it here. My name is Nduko. You're in the studio this morning with myself and CT Muga. When we come back, we'll delve into these matters a little bit more deeply and see what we get.
Spice up your life.
All right. Ngong Road this morning doesn't seem to be doing very well. Fire engines and ambulances all over the place. We don't know if there's been an accident there, but we'll get the information as soon as we can and share that with you. You want to approach with caution, and this is Ngong Road inbound. Mind you, outbound, there doesn't seem to be much of a problem. All right. A vehicle that has been burnt down, unfortunately, right around the Kikuyu fire station is on the road now and waiting for emergency services to come along. It's Monday morning, so everything that we see on the road is a bit crazy right now. Kiambu Road, we're at 6 lanes now, what originally should have been 2. Trying to then join the Thika Superhighway is not as easy as we thought. There's a fire incident reported at Lenana School along Gong Road, and that's why we see the ambulances that we talked about just a minute ago. Approach with caution, folks. There's a fire, we don't know exactly where, but approach with caution. Mombasa Road is hell on earth in some cases for some people. The traffic is enough to cause depression. I'm sorry, guys, but here we have to be very careful. All right. Looking at other parts, of course, the main thing being that there's this fire at Lenana School. We don't know exactly what the issue is. Approach with caution. Muthaiga, Pangani, the road heading from Muthaiga then to Pangani, getting into the city center, not so bad right now. Gong Road is locked. It's moving. Let us know what you see. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have CT Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
You're listening
Room.
into Kenya's biggest conversation right here in the Situation Room on Spice FM. My name is Nduko, and in the studio this morning with CT Muga. And of course, then looking at what is happening in Nairobi. there's been a takeover, of course, of certain key functions by the national government, and basically said, look, with the stalemate that has been going on, of course, we see that conversation still happening. The legality or the illegality of it, of course, is being contested right now. We've had, several jump ups in terms of what is going to happen, taking it to court, saying this needs to be stalled. It actually is undemocratic, unconstitutional, whether here or the other. That conversation is taking place. Of course, come Friday, we did see and hear that President Uhuru Kenyatta basically appealed to MCAs, to the assembly, and said, you know what, halt this motion for impeachment that you're talking about. We've stepped in and we've taken care of the situation, essentially, because we've come to apply ourselves as national government to make sure that some of these key services are taken care of. So whereas things were in limbo previously in the county, we're going to be able to handle it now. So you wanted to impeach this fellow for certain reasons. It's all right. We can actually handle. So the reasons under which you wanted to impeach actually then now are moot. It is not. Those are non-existent. So you can actually get back to business. Dare to say that some members of the National Assembly said, you know what, probably is something that we want to give it a think over. But then looking a little bit deeper into that situation and asking ourselves really what is going on here, because could it have been that the governor was looking for a way to avoid this imminent impeachment that was coming about, of course, that was mentioned a couple of days ago? And it seemed that, the national government did swoop in and basically save the day. So basically 2 things were saved here. 1, the city of Nairobi in essence. And secondly, this gentleman being the governor then from being impeached. Now asking yourself the question, it was a request that was put out by the government, by the president, that you actually don't need to go this way. We can handle this on a different level. And for MCAs having upheld their right to be able to say, we put out a vote of no confidence in this gentleman, whether having been saved by the national government, as it were, saved by the president, ignoring this appeal that has come from him and saying, you know what, we're going ahead with this motion. At the end of the day, regardless of who has been saved or who has not been saved, we do not want this man in the governor's seat, and we're going ahead with our motion. Of course, we're going to find out what the case will be, but in this case, I'm saying, and very clearly so, that the MCA still have their right, with an appeal or not from the top seat, to say that, look, we don't believe, coming from the voice of the people, that this man should continue to be in a position of governor. They have a right to that, and they should be able to push that as far as they can.
Let me tell you what I hear. Let's start by asking, how did we get into this position in the first place?
There seem to be position specifically? There seem to be a number of positions here.
The position I'm talking about, how did the governor find himself in a position where matters went to court and he had even to be told, look, you cannot function from within your offices, and this whole debate began. One, it began with the resignation of the deputy governor.
Right.
Okay? There are those who argue that the due process was not followed in the deputy governor leaving office, so that in essence, the office of the deputy governor in the county of Nairobi is actually not vacant. He may not be working there, but the process by which he got in
was not complete.
The process by which he should get out was not complete. So legally speaking, the gentleman who was the deputy governor, Polika Igade, is still the deputy governor of Nairobi. There are those who argue that.
If we're going to go nitpicking. Yes.
I am nitpicking.
Yes.
I am nitpicking deliberately.
Okay.
And then there were the issues of movements of chief officers.
Suspensions, sackings.
Yes, it looked like all you needed to do was to look at the governor with your left eye as opposed to your right, and you're gone. There have been movements. It looks like this was an individual who was trying to adjust to the powers that he had in his office. Let me show you that you can't joke with me sort of like situation. People are moved around. For the longest time, you didn't have a county secretary. And when you had, it was an acting county secretary. Meaning, he was playing musical chairs with his own administration. That really was it. So by the time issues of misappropriation and impropriety came in, they were a secondary issue. By the time it was being taken to court, there were a secondary issue. There had been other looming issues. And around it, there was the contention that with all these people being moved around and with no permanency as to this employment, services cannot be delivered because the chief officers are not actually present. That was the argument. Whether it holds water, whether it's true, is not really here or there. But now then you have a situation where the government comes in and they're telling you that, okay, to resolve this problem, we, the government of Kenya, are going to take over these ministries. We're going to take over finance, transport, 2 others. Okay? And the shambles that we see before us will now be set right. Who on earth are they fooling? So you're telling us that you are going to sort of like replace this, to put it politely, state of limbo with what we have proven to be consistent at incompetence.
Incompetence, right.
No, you're not improving the situation.
It's actually not making it better.
It's not confidence building.
Right. So you're saying that the national government, though they have the right to do this constitutionally.
They do.
But in terms of achieving any kind of results, there's nobody you're fooling that you're actually
in terms of results, no.
That you're not
you
gonna
can't
get
run
it
your own
done.
house and then you're going to run this one. If it comes to the processes that involve what you call sharing or transfer of powers, there are those again who will argue due process was not followed. But there is one particular entity that seems to stand to gain from all this. That entity is called KRA. Because they are the ones who've been given the task of collecting money directly. As soon as this
in this new deal, of course.
Yes,
right.
They are collecting revenue. Within a 3-month period of this particular county government coming in, it was reported that they had made a loss of 336 million Kenyan shillings. Let me give it a perspective. During that same period, they collected 3 months, quarter, in other words, they collected 1.5 billion Kenyan shillings. All right? A similar period, over 130 revenue streams, that is what they had. What had been collected was 1.875 billion shillings. That's where the 335 comes from. Okay? Now, if you have 1.8 billion being collected in a quarter, if you multiply that by 4, okay,
Some staggering numbers.
it's a beautiful amount of money that you're talking about.
All right. At this point, we want to hear from a member of County Assembly for Makongeni. That's Peter Imwatok, of course, who raised the motion for impeachment. And we're going to hear from him in terms of, how this is going to play out in the next couple of days. Hello, Peter. Good morning. Hello.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good, Peter. Good morning. How are you doing?
Mheshimiwa, good morning.
Fine, thank you. Morning to you.
So a lot has happened since the last time we spoke, right?
Yes.
Of course, Nairobi then essentially being taken over in terms of some key services, and then at the same time there was an appeal by the president himself asking members of the county assembly to basically shelve this motion for impeachment. Am I getting it right, or am I off here?
I think people are misquoting the president.
Okay.
I was unable to attend the meeting. As the chief whip of the opposition, I mobilized as directed by my party, all the members to attend the invite of the president. And what the president, I've tried to get the updates of really what happened at the meeting, and I'm reliably informed the president never mentioned anything on the issue of impeachment.
Okay.
And after people left the gate of State House, I've even questioned people, can somebody authoritatively quote for me that the president mentioned this? Because people want to derail the agenda of the president fighting corruption. And the main agenda of the president as a whip, when I whipped people to State House, was very clear, to update the members on their role of oversight on the issues that have been taken back by the national government. And if so, that Sonko believes that the president had given us, MCS, the express orders to don't impeach him, then why take me to court this morning? Because currently I'm going to court to defend myself. Sonko has taken me to court that I should not impeach him.
Right.
There are some things we cannot add up at all. We must be realistic and honest to ourselves. And this also I challenge the honorable members of the county assembly. Kindly, don't quote the president wrongly.
Okay, well, so seeing as you were not there, Mheshimiwa, and of course, there's certain things that you can't confirm or deny by virtue of the fact that you were not in the room when this meeting took place. Of course, the reports that came out later were that they were asked to act in the best interest of Nairobi residents by shelving plans to impeach Governor Sonko. This is what has come out. Could it be that somebody was...
This is a private motion of a member by them, Peter Imwatok. If I have to shelve this motion, there is a procedure that I need to execute in Parliament. And as a move of the motion, I must be told that this is the reason as to why you are asked to shelve this motion.
Right.
And so far as you're talking, no one has told me, Honorable Imwatok, this is a private member's motion. You need to shelve based on this and this. That's why I've said when I was back in this city, I tried to confirm and ask people to confirm to me exactly what words were used for me to withdraw a motion of impeachment against on corruption allegations. So for me, I still stick to my creed.
So can I ask, so in this case, whether it was the president who asked for a shelving of this motion or God himself, there's nothing that's going to stop you from carrying forward. This is what you said.
I want to quote the president. I can guarantee I don't want to quote the president, because if today somebody can quote me authoritatively, say the president has said this in this word, then I should make some considerations.
At the same time, you don't know if he didn't say it. You don't know. In this case, you don't know if he did or he did not. Right?
Let me say one thing. The president has a presidential delivery unit, test unit, which can say, on the interest of this, the president asked the honorable members of the 1, 2, 3, 4. But what is being reported is clearly the president has asked the honorable members of the County Assembly to support the national government on the 4 agendas being taken by the national government, period. Any other thing, my challenge even to you and the people of the media, if indeed our president, who fights vehemently corruption, has asked us to shelve this motion, why then has Sonko panicked and moved to court this morning?
Okay.
That's the question.
What
That's a
would,
fundamental question we must ask ourselves.
and what would be the answer from you, Mweshimiwa? In this case, what would...
It's very simple. The president has not directed anyone to stop fighting against corruption.
What if those would argue that Governor Sonko also understands that you're going to go forward with this motion, whether the president asked you to or not, and this is the reason why he has moved to court this morning, because he realizes that your resolve is strong.
The president has not asked anyone to stop fighting corruption.
Please understand my question. Understand my question, Mweshimiwa. I am saying in this point, Sonko understands also. He also understands that your resolve is strong. Whether or not the president said shelve this motion, he also understands that you're going to go ahead with it, and this is the reason why he has gone to court this morning.
So he can confirm then, the fears are very clear, that he confirms the allegations and the particulars of impeachment are true to the fact. And maybe even the honorable, because I don't impeach the president, the governor alone. If he believes he has numbers, the president has, which the president has not. You know, people like quoting the president, the right honorable prime minister on issues that are plenty. If he believes then he's been directed that the members should be there, why not allow the motion now to move and have the numbers to defeat the motion? So, and the fact must be known by Nairobians.
So is the motion moving forward?
The motion is moving forward.
The motion.
No one has asked. The motion is moving forward, as I promised Nairobians.
Let me ask the question, Mweshimiwa.
I've never been asked.
Can I ask the question, Mweshimiwa?
Yes.
Under what circumstances would you withdraw this motion?
No any circumstances, because the circumstances are very clear. It's out of conscience, as I've always told people. This out of conscience that we must define leadership in this country. I might not be a perfect leader at all, but at the end of the day, we must define leadership. Yes.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Of course, Member of County Assembly for Makongeni, this is Peter Imwatok. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. Of course, we're going to see how things unfold, and we'll be talking to you again in the near future, I am sure.
I'm grateful.
Thank you very much, Mweshimiwa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break and see what's happening with the weather. We continue with the conversation in a short bit.
Chilled Spice.
So partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, and we're seeing highs of 24 through the day, but of course showers expected later on in the day, standing strong at 17 degrees right now. In Nakuru at 15 degrees, light showers expected later, cloudy skies through the day with highs of 24 as well. And looking into Eldoret at 14 degrees, overcast today, showers expected later, partly cloudy conditions as well if the rain does hold up. And we see highs of 23 and lows of 17. In Mombasa, 26 degrees. We see partly cloudy conditions, highs of 33. In Malindi, 32, the high. Partly cloudy conditions at 28 degrees, and showers might come through later. In Kisumu, 22 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, thunderstorms forecasted for later, with highs of 25 and highs of 30 and lows of 25. Looking further on into East Africa, in Kampala, 22 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, highs of 30 and lows of 20. In Dar es Salaam, currently at 29 degrees, a warm day there with highs of 33 and lows of 25. In Lagos, partly cloudy conditions, and it's going to be a hot day, highs of 37, currently standing at 28 degrees, a rain expected later on. Down south in Johannesburg at 19 degrees, highs expected of 28 and lows of 22, and partly cloudy conditions that we see there. We'll take a look at Europe later on, but for now, this is your weather in Africa.
Breathing life into the 90s.
Everybody, what's up?
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Intelligent humor and nostalgic music.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. You're in the Situation Room this morning with myself, Nduoko, and CT Muga. And of course, looking at issues having to do with Nairobi today. And of course, many things have come up. And here, we're dealing with two issues here. Get rid of a governor, improve services in the city. And those then who have been tasked with the job of improving services in the city don't have a very sparkly record themselves, do they, CT?
They do not. The one thing that the MCA for Makongeni brought forth, and which is in fact a stark reminder of a certain reality, is that amidst all these problems, the president has made some sterling effort in really trying to not just fight corruption, but to bring it to an end. We have had two state officers coming here to talk to us, the DPP and the CEO of the
EACC.
Yes. And the things that they have told us, and when you look at what's actually happening around the country and you put it into perspective, the fight is real. It's just that the particular dragon they are fighting is a fairly huge one. And it has tentacles everywhere, even where you don't expect it to be. And the thing is, it fights back, and it fights back ferociously. Now, not very long ago, KRA announced that they were unable to meet their targets. The year before, they also did not meet their targets. Then KRA came up with all manner of mechanisms to try and raise more money. The thinking behind it when you talk to economists is sound. It's just that maybe their communication department needs a little revamping. But if you want people to pay more money, you need to explain to them and they need to be convinced. But why convincing becomes difficult is because the tax money that the taxpayer already has, when given to the government, doesn't do what the government says it's going to do with it.
It's going to do with it in the first place.
The unwillingness to pay more money takes center stage.
And it's understandable, of course.
But that having been said, if you look at the money that revenue is collected from the county, all right? There's revenue that you collect on a daily basis. There's revenue you collect yearly. There are revenues probably you collect quarterly. These revenues are huge. Now, what is reported as being collected is what is reported as being collected. What is really collected, in all honesty, we don't
is a different story.
Really know.
It seems to me that this is the proverbial pie, Nairobi now, being one that everybody wants a piece of.
Yes.
And unfortunately, or fortunately for them, this stalemate or this nonsense that was going on presented the perfect opportunity then for people to step in and say, aha, this pie that we wanted, now it can come under the guise of providing better services for the county, better services for the people, but essentially looking at the underbelly of issues, a perfect opportunity to have a slice of this pie that is Nairobi County and, you know, all of us to have a piece of it. It might sound conspiratorial, but it just seems that this is actually what it has presented itself.
Sense, but also, it's not the first time KRA has done this. KRA has attempted to actually collect revenue in other counties. I know it has attempted in Kisumu. Banks have also tried to collect revenue. They've even tried to collect revenue from national parks. this hasn't been successful, and it's for a very specific reason. It's one thing to collect taxes, which are direct revenue, and the streams are known and the manner of collection and enforcement is clear. It is another to actually collect the sort of taxes or the sort of revenue that counties and former municipalities collect on a daily basis. If KRA is going to succeed in this, they may end up having to subcontract some of their work. Let me give you an example, for instance. If you're to take, say, for instance, parking fees, KRA are not experts at collecting money from such sources. So what are they going to do? Improve their capacity? How are they going to
do that?
What is this they're going to do? They have to partner with other people who can do this. If you're talking about revenue that they collect, say, from marketplaces, if you're talking about revenue that even the government collects from the hospitals, I am simply saying that all these revenue sources, direct and easy ones, are like the ones which you pay for, say, land, or the ones that you pay for permits, or the ones you pay for business licenses. Those are straightforward. You can quantify the businesses, you can quantify the way they work, you can quantify the nature, and it's not difficult to determine how much you can pay. But there are others that are far trickier. And because of this particular nature, the question one would ask is, what is the basis? Are they beginning by, first of all, determining what is the real revenue capacity of Nairobi? Forget what you've been told has been collected. You cannot talk about figures without understanding what the potential is. And this you can scientifically do. You can actually determine and say the capacity that the city of Nairobi has is this. There was a time when the University of Nairobi was involved in such surveys, and they came up with certain figures. And one can assume that it was a very good job. But I'm saying sometimes you need a second opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is where now technology comes in. And technology, in this particular instance, will provide you with a degree of accuracy that anything else cannot. Now, when you understand the potential, then you can talk about shortfalls. Remember, KRA set targets. KRA has never told us what the potential of Kenyans or the potential of revenue in Kenya collection is. You never hear of it.
Of course not.
But what we saw in the Kibaki government was that the capacity exists for Kenya to finance its own activities. That we understood with great clarity. So when people fall short, we also understand they are falling short of it. So I'm not going to wish KRA good luck. KRA don't need luck. KRA needs expertise. And if you look at the organization, that organization has the capacity for being really seriously efficient. And they have some of the best trained people, some of the best educated people. They have the means.
Right, so then using the capacity that is available to them to be able to get things done. I don't see anything in terms of Nairobi unless now some of these creative initiatives are then employed to make sure that you do something different with the city. Of course, we must understand that a capital city is important to any government when it comes to the profile of a country. This is why you see apart from the money making side of things, this is why you see everybody wants to be involved at that level towards the success of a capital city like Nairobi, for example, which then, if you want to put it in terms of its importance in the region as a hub, etc., where the United Nations is based, where very many international organizations take place, of course the national government wants to be involved in that. But I'm saying deeper than that. Here's an opportunity and the litmus test to say, KRA, here, are you going to be able to do what you should in terms of collection of revenue in a creative manner? There are many more things that a capital city should be able to do. But unfortunately, I don't see this swooping move by the national government coming into the city, the one that is going to save Nairobi. From the issues that has dogged it over the last 10 years, I don't see it being the answer.
It's like when we're
if
talking
anything,
about...
I see it being a saving grace for the governor himself and nothing else.
No. Not a saving grace. If you understand politicians and what they thrive on, it has dented very many things. Consider for a single second the mandate that KRA has, which is fairly clear, and consider the existence of Nairobi first as a city, as a council, as a metropolis, as all these things, and consider that ecosystem has had the largest number for the longest time. Largest number of cartels known to mankind in this country. And you think because you bring in KRA, they're suddenly going to slink and die away.
This is what I'm asking. With the introduction of the national government into this now, does it mean that there's an end to all of these woes that has dogged Nairobi for the last 10 years?
No.
It's not going to be. It's not
what
the
you've
answer.
Done, you've actually brought in more animals into the zoo.
Into this zoo, right?
Yes.
They said, okay, well, in this circus that's taking place, come on, guys, come in and join the foray, because I don't see this making things better.
Because previously,
could this have been the only answer? Was the introduction of the national government into this Nairobi city mess the answer to the problems that Nairobi has faced over time?
It could have provided a solution if the government functioned differently.
If we had seen a government that previously used to
if they had a track record of things that you see,
being taken care of, even if we want to talk about most recently with the things that we've seen, then we could say okay. But with the track record that we have seen over time across sector, whether you want to look at health, whether you want to look at agriculture,
take your pick.
Anything, throw a stone, it's going to land somewhere, right? It's not the answer. Nairobi is not going to be saved by this move.
I don't think so. If you consider that municipalities had problems in the past, but then they were under the local authority, and what the local authority would form commissions, and those commissions would run their councils. This isn't new again. It isn't. I think the money that is possible, the money that who's raising and the possibility of getting hold of it is at the center of this move. If you ask me, it is a colossal amount. Nairobi is a big business. Nairobi is not an industry. It's a huge, massive business. It's a huge, massive business that whatever it is that the governor Nairobi was doing or didn't do, and his misdeeds, perceived real or otherwise, have given the government an opportunity to try and give KRA an opportunity to sort out their mess. Meaning, okay, guys, let's give you Nairobi and let's see if Nairobi can help you sort out these gaps that you keep talking about. Because at the end of the day, if it's the county running it, the county will collect, will tell you what they've collected, and then you can derive your tax from that. Presumably, if you're collecting it directly, it's the other way around. You collect, then you give the county what you think is necessarily theirs. But just like we're discussing with the diseases that are prevalent, irrespective and despite the introduction of the coronavirus, the problems that bedeviled the county are not going to suddenly go away. The cartels are suddenly not going to go away.
Good time for a nugget of African wisdom right now, CT, don't you think? Before we take a break and look at what's happening on the roads, nuggets of African wisdom can find their way right here, don't you think?
I think you can. And the lion, or lions, or the pride of lions, until they start writing their own stories, hunters will always be the heroes.
We're going to take a look at the roads and come back and continue with this conversation. This is the Situation Room. Don't go away.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Okay, like we said, industrial area is going to be a mess until about the 13th of March.
Traffic.
Because there's some roadworks that are happening there. Likoni Road towards Enterprise Road Junction. Of course, it's been at a standstill for some time now. Transit into and Mombasa Road inbound is causing a bit of a problem this morning. It'll open up in just a while. This morning, then, looking at what's going on, Mombasa Road very slow, but it's happening. Thika Road also very slow, moving very slowly. Uhuru Highway, in a nutshell, this morning is that it's at a standstill. We have the fire that's happening right now, unfortunately, on the Lenana School, and that's affecting traffic in and outbound on Gong Road today. We don't know the cause. We don't know if any casualties so far. We're following that for you, and we'll be able to find out in a short while exactly what is going on. That's what we have so far. Unless you see something else that we should know about, don't hesitate to let us know on Spice FM KE, which is on Twitter, or give us a call on 0719-012-600. We'll keep you moving as best we can this morning.
Broadcasting worldwide. Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Unright. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This morning, and of course, in the studio this morning, CT Muga and myself, Nduoko, and we're looking at issues having to do with Nairobi. Of course, the recent sentiments coming out from the office of the president. The president himself, according to reports, allegedly, that he basically has said, you know what, then we've had a conversation. We've introduced new measures. Really, these plans for impeachment are not necessary. I'm saying this morning that, these folks have a right to do this. If they feel that the governor, which of course is enshrined in law, if they feel that he's not up to scratch, and it's not even about running of the city in this case, they brought issues of corruption, mismanagement of office as the reason as to why they want to go forward with this impeachment motion. Whether Nairobi has been saved or not, those still stand. Whether the services, key functions of the city have been taken over by the national government, those issues by the assembly still stand, that these are the reasons why they want to remove this governor. So whether the president comes in and takes a salvation step towards helping the governor or not, the issues still stand, and they should have a right to carry on with their motion. And if they want to be able to now say their grounds for impeachment, by all means, they should be able to carry on. Whether Nairobi has been saved or not, the gentleman who was at the helm for the longest time when things essentially went to the dogs should be held accountable. According to them, if they feel that this is what they want to go ahead and do, they should be given the space to do so. I don't think he came.
Have they been denied the space?
This is the thing. I don't think he came at them with a bulldozing effect kind of thing and said you can't do this or else. It was a suggestion that was made.
I even don't think the suggestions. I actually believe what Motok was saying.
You think the reports coming out then are false?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. They are peppered. They are doctored. They are enhanced. They have been given some wind assistance. That story came out once. Have you heard it again? Have you had further discussions on it apart from the one we're having and the one which... Look, the president has other forums in which he can ask for such a favor, as the MCA for Makongeni said.
Which was interesting because he was having a meeting with members of the county assembly, Nairobi.
Yes, and he had them at State House. And
yes, he called them to State House.
I actually believe the narrative that he was saying, look, folks, you have this role of oversight. When we take over, this is how we are going to work. That makes perfect sense to me. What doesn't make perfect sense to me is why he would ask them to go easy on Sonko. Why would he need to? What does he need Sonko for? See, unless you want to open a channel for peddling speculation, all right, what for? It makes more sense if he's calling them to say, look, as the national government, we are now going to be working with you as a county assembly. And I thought it would be good for me to respectfully explain to you how we're going to go about this. I don't think the president is the only one who addressed them. I'm sure there were other government functionaries who were there who would certainly put emphasis and explain and lay bare things that they needed to understand. If somebody took this meeting as an interpretation of, can you kindly give Sonko a break, cut him some slack, then that is a figment of their imagination. But let's take the really remote chance
that this actually was the case.
Then I would ask the question, why would the president need to do so? Why? What on earth is this that is so important about the governor that the president would intervene on his behalf? And is this the way he would intervene when you know very well that the composition of MCAs in Nairobi is not predominantly on one side of the divide?
It could be, of course, the speculation has been rife in the sense that, support has been strong on the side of Sonko. And this comes from a voter's perspective that, there's support.
Why has the support been strong?
Well, I mean,
is it something that has actually been driven by the heart, or is it something that has been driven by commerce?
Well, of course, no. People feel that, the people of Nairobi have always felt close to this man as a governor because of what he's been able to do for them on a personal level.
I'm talking about the MCAs.
No. I mean, not support from the MCA. I'm talking about the support that the people of Kenya have given to Sonko. The voting population. And this is what I'm saying. This is where the speculation has come from. That the president could understand very well. This is the speculation, follow me, CT. That the president also understands that he has a following, right? So you want to do what you can to protect him, because essentially what you do is that you protect that following.
Remember, this is the president, huh? Well, I'm going because I need you to understand the clear and present divide that exists between these two positions of president and governor. He's also leader of a political party,
to which he also belongs.
He also has instruments of state. He actually doesn't need your help. Not really. Not really. Unless he chooses and thinks that help will drive an agenda that suits his grand plan.
CT, there is no smoke without fire. It would be very difficult for me to understand if and why somebody would come out of that meeting and say this and say, actually, you know what? Don't hold back on your impeachment. It would be very difficult for me to understand why somebody would come out and make up a story in
politicians.
In
Politicians.
In its completeness, and say, actually, you know what? He told us a conversation was had somewhere with somebody.
No, not
right?
necessarily.
It doesn't dissuade. Imwatok from doing what they want to do. We've asked him the question this morning, and he has said it doesn't matter who said it. The president himself, if let's just say he did do it, it doesn't matter. And I'm saying whether he said it or not, these guys are not being dissuaded from the fact that they want to put forth this motion for impeachment, and they want to say, look, we're not even talking about the runnings of Nairobi as a county, which is what the national government has overtaken. We are talking about corruption that we are seeing, the grand corruption that continues to take place. And this gentleman, having been at the helm of the governorship for the city, that is what we want to hold him on. It doesn't dissuade them. At the end of the day, whether the President Uhuru said it or not, they're still going to go ahead with this agenda. And they want to make sure that regardless, whether a paper was signed at State House, handing over to devolution, whatever happened, we do not want this gentleman there. At the end of the day, it doesn't dissuade them from the agenda. So you can imagine. So this is what I'm saying. Let's say he did say it, and he said it himself. It doesn't matter.
You know,
we still want him out.
We spoke with the Mheshimiwa Imwatok, and he struck me as a sincere person.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Unfortunately, sincerity in his chosen profession is actually a rare currency. That's the unfortunate thing.
And it's also unfortunate that he wasn't at that meeting. So he can't confirm or deny anything, unfortunately.
Actually, I can speculate.
Yes, you can speculate, but it remains that. It remains speculation in this sense.
Now, this is a country where speculation is currency. And it's actually currency which has actually, should we see, determined worth. Let me tell you where I'm going with my discussion, all right? If the president disbanded the commission that was there, or the committee that was there to sort out the matters of the coronavirus, with the intention of ensuring that things actually get done, then let's give it a day, and in the course of this week, if we see the inclusion of Kemri, people within Kemri in that committee, a body that was set by an act of parliament to do precisely this, understand these things. It has an entire center that deals with virology. Entire. That's all it does. Research on viruses. We see them involving the University of Nairobi Medical School and the labs. We see them, national laboratories, we assume will be involved. We see them involving the medical associations. We see them involving KMA. Then you will say these people are serious and we can see change. So long as it's bureaucrats within various ministries of health, Ministry of Defense, Foreign Affairs, what have you, transport. That one, rest assured, it will stay exactly where it is. It will make minimal movement, but we'll hear a lot of words and nothing will get done. In the same way, if the government intends to make a change in the county of Nairobi, taking over those functions, they can do. Mistake number one, its clear procedure wasn't followed. Because laid down procedure, I don't have to guess here. I just need to read it and know they did not follow all of it. Fine, let's push that aside. KRA haven't been given this job, and KRA themselves have been unable to collect what they can. The narrative we've heard is that there is a certain percentage of people who carry the burden of the taxes, true, and they should. If you earn a lot of money, pay more.
Pay, yes.
Perfectly okay. Those who earn and have not been paying must, not should, must also pay. We understand. But KRA has also been the center of attraction and attention of the anti-corruption, the DPP, and the DCI. Meaning among this body, within this body that's supposed to be charged with ensuring that our taxes are collected and looked after, they have had cases of theft that are actually mind-boggling. And why it's worrying, they are the ones who actually collect the money. So it's worrying. It's worrying. They are the ones who have the legal mandate to collect money. Now, if there is theft at that level, It's akin to people who are supposed to look after the security bringing about danger when they are the ones who are supposed to protect you. So when you're told you have KRA, you have to pause and ask, what guarantees do we have that they're going to do better than the county of Nairobi? And if they are, what is this thing that they're going to do? And remember, my postulation was, none of these bodies have ever been able to tell us our potential.
In terms of what actually can be done. And,
Yes.
and if you want
So
to look
that-
at it,
yes, carry
I
on.
don't think I wouldn't doubt that within the terms of reference for a revenue agency, that the potential of a certain area is what should actually be encompassed in any kind of reporting that you do. We should be able to collect such. They too have actuarial scientists who work for them, and to be able to say, based on what we see in terms of a growing economy and such, these are the things that we should be able to do. How the way in which you then do them, of course, then is left up to your own creativity. But in terms of a forecast, they should have a pretty good idea of what you should be able to collect out of a city.
It's simpler than you think.
Right. It should be done.
They have revenue streams.
Exactly.
Okay.
So in terms of giving
In
us
this
the
county,
actual
say
number,
130. These are parking, markets, hospitals, licenses, permits. You have them, So all you need to do is ask, for instance, how many people do this sort of business? Because the taxes and some of these are determined by the size of your business.
and they give out these tax certificates. They are the ones who give out these licenses in the first place. So they are aware.
You can't conduct a business without a license.
No.
So all I'm saying is, it's something they can do. Whether KRA is best placed to do it or whether somebody else can do it is a different story. But if you do not begin by telling us that the county of Nairobi has the revenue potential of 1 trillion Kenya shillings, for example, I don't care even if you collect 3 trillion. As a Kenyan, I'll be thinking these guys are collecting 5 and keeping 2.
Absolutely.
Or to be realistically, they are collecting 10 and giving us 3.
We're going to take a break. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll be back in a bit.
Spice FM, Nyeri.
Get your daily jackpot of 10 million shillings with only 50 bob or get your transaction charges as bonus in your Morzat Bets account. Connect with me on the Spice Drive every Monday to Friday and get to know how to get your
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Oh, yeah.
The greatest hits ever, played all workday.
Let's have a great time.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Intelligent humor and nostalgic music.
Yes, that's part of the show. Yeah!
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up
in the
yourself.
situation this room this morning, Kenya's biggest conversation, of course, talking about Nairobi today and seeing then what is the future for this city, and then asking questions in light of what has happened over the recent days and what could potentially happen in the future. It just seems confusing to some, but very clear to others that there's a game here that's being played under the surface or behind the curtain, as it were, and to say that it's not always as it seems. times. And again, I'm just going to go with that, you know what, if we're looking at the impeachment of the governor, the MCAs have every right to go ahead with what, regardless of what the rumors may be, whether the president said or did not say. They have right to go ahead with what it is that they feel. If there's certain charges that are being levied here and saying that, you know, impeachment is imminent because of 1, 2, 3 vote of no confidence, which is essentially what impeachment then would stamp. Yes, they have a right to go ahead and do that, regardless of who's going to say what. They can go ahead with this, and I think we see the resolve this morning that it's very clear that they're going to go ahead with it and name you know, the cases or the charges that they have to bring in. And I think this is what is going to happen, regardless of the fact that the national government has taken over key roles. We're probably going to see the motion for impeachment carry the day.
You know, one of the things that this impeachment process has brought to the fore is what it is that can actually be done if individuals in this country of goodwill and who actually take their work seriously actually do what they're supposed to do. Because this rot that we keep speaking of and which has been written about for the longest time didn't start with this tenure of these governors. What was evident is how lifestyles of governors changed. People who were just ordinary, simple citizens going about their business suddenly became millionaires, some became billionaires.
Yeah.
And without any visible business that they are involved in that could generate that money. None whatsoever.
Right. Well, let's hear from Lydia and what she has to say. Lydia, good morning. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Lydia. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning, Spice FM.
Good morning, Lydia.
We learn a lot. Good morning, City. We learn a lot from your programs. You keep our brains moving all the time.
Thank you.
I wanted to say impeachment is the only way because this person has a history that is always suspicious. So impeachment is the right way. Then on your other issue about BBI, why are they paying 500 shillings? Are they buying your signature for 500 shillings?
Yes.
This again is corruption. So you can't teach law through corruption. No referendum is required right now until the whole constitution has been implemented. So why should they be taught this if they are ignorant? They can't teach law if they are ignorant. And they want a biggest additional bloated government for the big fish to earn. No, this is not allowed. And on the coronavirus, my grandmother, when we were babies, children, we always slept. We were always playful and active. But when she found us only just sleeping and hiding under the blanket, she knew we were very sick. She would touch our forehead and notice we got a very high temperature. She would rush and put a wet cloth on the head to reduce the temperature because high temperature can kill. Why don't the doctors ever tell us to do this first aid? She cured us, and then after a week, she gives us bath in boiled tea leaves. In a big sufria, she puts tea leaves and she boils, and she gives us a bath for those measles or chicken pox rashes to dry up fast. See, she never ever took us to the hospital for measles, whooping cough, and chicken pox. So nobody wants to teach us first aid. I don't know why. Thank you, Spice FM.
Thank you very much for that, Lydia. Asante Sana. Of course, you know, then continuing with that and saying, you know, just as we go along and then taking a look at really coming back and saying what is happening in Nairobi, there is absolute necessity for, you know, things to be in order. And it cannot be ignored that you're looking at a city that holds a lot of prestige. You're looking at a city that then holds a very high profile when it comes to the country, of course, it being the capital city. And apart from that, then being a hub in the region where certain things are looked at as extremely important then when it comes to legislation, when it comes to governance. We're going to see in a couple of days what is really going to happen. And now looking at the governor and the charges that have been brought against him in court, the charges that have been brought against him by the same state, which many have speculated then is then trying to protect him by swooping in and then taking care of the matters at the county level. But of course, then we're going to see the motion for impeachment is going to go ahead. And the resolve is strong then to make sure that the things that happen don't continue to happen. And I think this is two-pronged in this approach, is that you can't have a city with as high a profile as you do with Nairobi, then have people sitting at the helm not running things properly, and at the same time somebody charged with things like mismanagement of office and corruption still sitting in that position. And I think this is a sentiment that you see coming out from the MCAs. I would like to believe that at the end of the day, if I go back and take up residency in idealism, that they actually do care for the people of this city and are trying to make sure that somebody who's sitting in the position is doing what is necessary to have the city run right.
You're right. It's twofold, really. Consider this. If you look at the lay of the land and the impunity with which you could do things no longer exists or it's fast receding, then you change your spots. You realize, I will not get away with this. So I need to do an about turn. And the about turn is something that politicians understand and can do very well. Unfortunately, politicians who have a conscience and who really seek to do what they, signed up to do, they are often misrepresented by those who don't. And who would rather use expediency and whatever is convenient and whatever it is that suits their own individual purposes towards a particular end. That seems to be the unfortunate thing that we've had. And it's a situation where you've had governments upon governments, leaders upon leaders who have broken promises, lied to you outrightly, stolen your money. The very things they're supposed to do, they haven't done. So it becomes an uphill task for anyone to believe that you can actually have a leader who means well. And yet they exist. That you can have a leader who actually wants to do the thing they're supposed to do. They actually exist. I actually know they exist. Yes, they do. In fact, the vast majority of people in this country, our failing in participating in good processes is not in what we do, but rather what we don't do.
What we don't do.
Yes.
But unfortunately, the negative is what seems to take the day, or the lack of activity, or the inaction that we see by very many. And that it overshadows those who actually might be doing a good job. And if you don't have those who might be in a position or are in the position where they're trying to make sure that they're doing a good job, if we don't have them speaking, it actually does then seem as if they are not.
Actually, it's worse than that.
And
it's
a
worse.
call for
you actually seem to be
like
siding.
you're part of them.
Yeah, but no, your actions amount to that.
Exactly.
If you don't speak about something that is wrong, you might as well be perpetrating it.
Which you are.
Yes.
Or mission commission kind of thing.
Yes, it does.
That's where we go
and
into that.
if you have a situation where you know very well what is right, but you prefer to self-preserve and not put yourself in an uncomfortable position, then you are encouraging that practice that you speak about as being bad, because you are not working against it.
Well, exactly. But then in this case, if you don't speak out, we will never know. And on that point, CT, nuggets of African wisdom.
Well, let me just state it and then explain why it is that it's relevant what we're saying. We said until lions start writing their own stories, hunters will always be heroes. 3 levels. Level number 1. It is the holder of the narrative who determines how it is presented. In a country like ours, even those who consider themselves to be brave, we could call them lions.
Yeah.
But until they allow themselves to speak out and have what their intentions are stated, the people who hold political positions, the people who make decisions on our behalf will have sway. And in that respect, they are the ones who will write the narrative. And because they write the narrative, they will appear to be the most important. Absolutely. And as this saying goes, they'll become the heroes. So, until lions and their offspring learn to start writing their own stories, not only will their stories be written for them, and wrongly so often, but the hunters will always be the heroes.
Yeah, the hunters are the ones who then essentially will be glorified. The ones who are speaking out and maybe not doing much. Those who actually hold the glory are not the ones who then hold the stage when it comes to accolades that they would receive then in terms of what they did. So, I mean, it's time to speak up, though. It's time to then shine in terms of what it is that you're doing and actually have your glory manifested.
Yes.
If we're going to look at it in terms of pushing a country forward, making sure the agenda for, right practices is actually established. The time to speak out is by the ones who are actually doing the work.
Yes. Indeed.
It's been a good conversation this morning in the Situation Room. Of course, the day continues. CT, at this point, it is nice for you to close with something nice and say goodbye, and we talk to you tomorrow.
Well, let the conversation continue. And may it actually continue along the lines that actually look into the interest of the citizenry of Kenya, and more so those who are disadvantaged. But let the conversation continue.
Absolutely. Let the conversation continue. Thanks for being part of the Situation Room this morning. Of course, looking at very many issues as we continue. It's important to keep talking about them as we go along. We're going to end the show in a bit, but then remembering that you continue with a Spice Soul through the rest of the day until about 3 o'clock, where Monique will step in with a Spice Drive, and she will take you home until about 7 o'clock, where you listen to some oldies but goodies as well. The adults in the room with Eric, Emmanuel, and Barbara will come in then from 7 o'clock till 10 p.m. and they'll be talking issues, adults, of course, and you can always chime in to that conversation. And we will be back with you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, where we continue looking at the nation and, of course, issues that hold sway. Do have yourselves a wonderful day, and we will talk with you tomorrow again as we do continue the conversation. Thanks for keeping it here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's been the Situation Room. My name is Ndoko, and I've been here with CT Muga. We will talk again tomorrow.